Whoa! What happened there? Why does it show Ding as white when Gukesh is white? Hang on. Sorry, folks. Back to the French. Woo! Oh my goodness. How exciting. Alright, my computer's calmed down. Exchange variation. Whoa. It's a new world. It's a new world. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Good day / middle of the night to everybody. And wow, they're really on time with this whole thing, aren't they? Hey, YouTube. Wow. Asher, Jonathan, Avinash, greetings. Hope you guys are all well. I just had Twitch open first. Now we've got YouTube open as well. Howdy, howdy. Scared of having space? Good morning, Matt. Hey, Francois. Man, everybody was ready. Everybody was ready for this. Scoreboard is missing yesterday's result. Let's put it in, huh? So I'm going to kick off the eval bar here. I personally consider the starting position to be, just a little something for white. Less than I used to consider it, Same with everybody, more or less. I think a couple years ago, people used to think that white was, somewhere between 0.2 and 0.3, and now it's more like 0.1, 0.15, something like that. Am I quiet right now? I can try and turn it up a little bit. This is an exchange French, yeah. All right, let me see. Am I quiet? La da 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 da. I am a little bit quiet. You're right. Let's turn me up. Okay. Maybe that's a little bit much. But okay, we'll do that. I am a little bit quiet. I have a very sore throat. I've even resorted, as of yesterday, to drinking tea from Costa's face, apparently. That's a coincidence. I'm not trying to market this old mug. Oh, that's hot and not very yummy. All right, C5 from Ding. Wow. Responding fairly quickly so far. Let's see if I've got the right board for highlighting. Yep, that's the right board. Okay, so C5 is the big choice here, right? From Ding on the last move. Accepting an isolated pawn instead of just, playing symmetrical moves like bishop d6, castles, rook e8. C3 from Gukesh says, okay, yes, you will have this IQP. He plays it quickly. Ding's playing pretty quickly too. He's taking a moment or two here and there to think. It seems like every single game it is white slightly directing things so far. Well, Ryan, welcome to this wonderful, disciplined community. Just because we're disciplined doesn't mean we won't be fun. C5, C4. Wow. Aggressive. Yeah, chat wondering about Queen E7, which makes sense. Okay, the problem with Queen E7 is probably that your bishop's on F8. So white plays bishop E3, you go knight G4, and then white just castles. And you take, check. You're on a rampage so far, right? Like, You threaten white. They defend. You come with your knight. They can't even defend. You break them. You crack them. You know, and then your initiative has run out. And you've got no pieces out, and you've got your king and queen on an open file. Right? So my voice sounds a bit better than yesterday. Okay. I feel about equivalent to yesterday, yeah. Okay, so does this answer queen e7 maybe? Isn't the bishop more appropriate on an f4 even if you don't take it? Well, Sam, if you don't take it, then what are you doing about your bishop on f8? You have to have a really good reason to play queen e7 with your bishop on f8, because if you move your queen back out of the way here, you've just spent 2 moves on the queen where you could have played queen c7 in 1 move, right? And white castles, and they're ahead of move. Also, this move c4 is quite consequent, and that's what people are going to start talking about is, you know, black's played c5, c4. Is this good or bad? Right? Well, it's a little tricky, but the idea of c4 is black knows white's going to undermine them with b3, and black has in mind to quickly develop the pieces so that if white ever plays c4, they can get active piece play with the b4 square. That's not going to make sense to maybe anyone who doesn't know this. For years, c4 was considered bad in basically most French positions. You know, even worse in positions with the e5, e6, where it takes all pressure off of d4, and white has a free hand to attack on the king side. But also here was considered a bit bad, and it was only more recently that people found that it's not so bad that basically when white plays b3, you can just trade on b3 and still have enough room for your pieces. So let me get a little closer. Oh, Gukesh played queen e2 himself, and then he trades. See, so here Gukesh is going to win a tempo, whether the bishop or the king takes. So he plays queen e2 once his bishop got out of f1. King e7. Okay, that's the live position. Cool. Yeah, c4 in this line is now sort of a recommended move that lots of people play. And I'm just giving a little historical context. It used to be considered bad. Why does the king recapture? If the bishop recaptures, then probably white gets control of this diagonal here that Sam Turley was wanting to get this bishop on, I think rightly, because e5 is one of the best squares on the board for white to control. This is probably the best diagonal for the dark square bishops. So, yeah. Okay, king takes. And slightly surprising moment for Gukesh to be thinking, but I think he's got a choice between bishop g5, b3, and castles. And if he's not super prepped, that's the kind of thing that Gukesh thinks about more than some other people. All right, Pino, I'm sorry about that. Our membership is a super value even without a code, but I don't know for sure if it's WC2024 or WC24. Maybe you can try both ways. Maybe one of those is correct. giving us a lot of action quickly today, these two. And there's a lot to discuss in these choices. First of all, I just want to stress, I think c4 is fully, rehabilitated as a good move for black, so it's not necessarily a sign of Ding being unprepared or playing a second best move or something like that. It might really just be what he's prepared for and what he thinks the best move is, or a very good move is. And then this choice from Gukesh to trade queens. When he plays queen e2, yeah, I think queen e7, he can understand it's a very high likelihood. Why would Gukesh choose to trade the queens like this? Well, maybe these positions with b3, because I think this is kind of the standard approach to this position, is you go castles, castles, b3, takes, takes, here. I think this is like sort of a standard position for black playing c4. Okay, the b3 break is basically always appropriate, Sam. It just may be slightly more or less strong with different timing. If white wants to avoid a queen trade, they should castle before playing b3, because black will have the move queen e7 maybe in some cases. Once white spends a tempo on b3. Okay, so live moves on the live board below, by the way. They've castled and played rook e8, which I thought were the most likely moves there. But I'm going to try and just be a little instructive over here for a moment. So what was I trying to say? So this would have been a standard approach to the position with the b3 break. And part of the point from black is that if white ever goes c4, trying to make a nice duo of pawns in the center, black has to move knight b4, and white finds this bishop with nowhere to go. You can also play these same lines with black, by the way, with the white bishop on e2 instead of c2. And in those positions, you still play this with knight b4 and bishop f5, and piece play there as well. Now, maybe Gukesh is thinking that without queens on the board, he can play this kind of structure here just based on black having split pawns and not based on trying to take over the center. In other words, leave the pawn on c3 defending his d pawn and just maneuver this kind of an endgame, maybe even like a knight a3, knight b5 idea, and just play a long, well, queenless middle game. Sorry, there's so much going on. I know this is going to be very confusing for any new players to suddenly be watching the World Championship, and we're trying to talk about things at such a level. But if you trade queens, it's really more of a queenless middle game than an end game, because there's still enough pieces on the board without the queens that you could attack somebody's king and create a checkmate. So maybe Gukesh is thinking in the queenless middle game / if he trades a few pieces end game, that maybe he can make something of this pawn structure that people haven't recently been able to do much in the middle game with. Okay, so that's just a first idea or thought as to what Gukesh might be playing at, yeah? Yeah, in the old days, Achilles, I mean, if we're talking 20 years ago, people definitely didn't play c4, but even before the supercomputers told us that you could, grandmasters had been experimenting with playing c4, 5-10 years ago for sure. There's also like this famous line here. This has been much played. This move order here, an anti-Sicilian with c3. And in this position here, after takes, d4, the move c4 became quite common here. So you see coming very fast from black without even a tempo on the bishop on d3. And then, bishop e2, knight f6, castles. And I'm quite confident the grandmasters have been playing this line for 10 years by now. So pre-Super Sicilians. So yeah, some more experienced players like Acratic will be saying like, that's where I've seen these positions before. If, for example, you don't play a lot of French and you're like, but I've had this somewhere. There is a link to video cam Sebastian Dierks. I can find that for you in a little bit. Now you play Hearthstone and Diablo. Fair enough. Neither is my cup of tea, but who knows? I mean, I'm actually drinking a cup of tea for the first time in a year. So, all right, Lumbra found the link for us. Thank you, Lumbra. So we're gonna try and grab that link here. I'm not gonna verify it. I'm just gonna trust Lumbra. Unlike Mubot, well, pin it. I'm not sure how to pin it on YouTube, but I'm gonna send it on YouTube as well. That's probably the link to, that's probably the link. I could watch it over here myself. I like to check out the players. Okay, so no thanks to the ads, and I see Gukesh working really hard like this, folks. That's like the summary of what you can see if you go to the player cam is Gukesh has got the full head grab of somebody working hard. And Ding is just like this because, you know, it's not his move and he's not the same kind of a, I don't know, he doesn't torture stuff out of his head in the same way on his opponent's turn. All right, so here we are. Castle's Rookie 8 played. Vasilios saying that John Ludwig Hammer's commentary is really good. Not just really good, sorry, incredible. Going back to Dojo Talks episode, you can see how he was right about the commentary. So you mean Vasilios right now, pound for pound, he's beating me at commentating this thing? Incredible. He is also like a much stronger grandmaster. All right, so is it a bad sign for Gukesh that he's out of prep? Wonders Craddock. A little bit, yeah. Yeah, you might like to have a little bit more of that pressure. But remember, folks, that as I stressed already in the very first game, winning the who is more prepped battle is just the first of, 10 or 20 or 100 battles in a given game, much less, 1,000 battles over the course of a match. So we should notice each of these little moments, but not blow them out of proportion, right? Gukesh clearly out-prepped Ding in that first game, was up almost an hour on the clock, right? Had a juicy position, and Ding showed you what the level of play can be in a World Championship match by solving unusual problems, tanking an hour in the opening to figure them out, and playing basically perfectly even when he just played quickly. At some point, he plays 6 or 7 complicated moves in a middle game in 2 to 3 minutes. So it's just one step, right? I agree with the Craddock, but then I also want to emphasize that it's just one step here. So it seems like Gukesh is not super prepared for Ding's choice here. Although I want to say when a player plays this fast, it may mean thanks, Vasilios. When a player plays this fast, it may sometimes indicate like a familiarity without like a perfect recall. So it could be something that they worked on 2 weeks ago and didn't like review last night. For example, yesterday's game, I thought from Gukesh spending 10-15 minutes in the first around move 5 to 8, I thought that he was out of prep. But somebody in chat on our YouTube, I read all the comments on our YouTube videos. Somebody in chat on the YouTube videos said that, they saw some comments from Gukesh and actually he was familiar with that line, with his knight BD7, knight takes F8 choice for those who know yesterday's game, right? So how he wanted to deal with that unusual bishop A3 move. He was not caught out by that prep. But he spent some minutes on it. So if you see the players using 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes, like, I wouldn't go so far as to say, like, they're lost and they're on their own, right? They might be double checking something or thinking about some choices here or there, right? No, no, it's fine. I'm happy to hear about what Jan Ludwig's doing. I thought that I could win the argument with Jan Ludwig. Um, I thought he was a smart guy who really cared about chess commentary and really thought about it seriously, and so there was a good chance that he could hear an opposing viewpoint, and we could go on about it. I was pretty convinced that we were probably right about doing commentary without the engine. I've seen some commentary with the engine, and so I suspected that I could convince him, but actually he told me that he was unconvincible. In other words, that there was like literally nothing I could have told him, shown him, no stat, no information, nothing that would have ever made him change his mind. So, but it was still good that we got to hear his perspective, even if we couldn't have a real back and forth, a full back and forth argument. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't carry around our convictions if we weren't, for the most part, all convinced that we're right about everything. But some people are aware that out of all the things they're convinced of, there's some that they're probably wrong about, And I think there's this very, very, very important question, right, Merles, which is, what would someone have to show you, or what would you have to learn or know to change your opinion on something, right? And that's a very important thing to have for any of your beliefs if you want to be able to correct your beliefs ever, right? To have something that this is like the information that would change my belief. It means your belief is based on some interaction with reality. So that's what I think, Selmer. One should be convincible. And me personally, I walk around with some convictions where I think like 95% chance I'm right, all the way down to 50-50. Like it's basically just a coin flip. So I've got a confidence interval on my opinions about chess and about life, etc. And I think that we as chess players actually have an advantage in this over a lot of other people. Most of us will be more convincible than others because you've carried around chess beliefs all your life, right? And then you play chess games, and sometimes your beliefs are proven false by your opponent's beliefs, right? Like you play something that you think is good, your opponent plays something else, you try your heart out in the game, you try your heart out in the post-mortem, you try your heart out analyzing the game later, and you find that you are wrong. And I think any good chess player has been convinced many times that they were wrong by, analysis and discussion, and that can carry over into life. And in my opinion, it's a very useful thing to be convincible and able to correct your ideas and beliefs. Yeah, Jacob, he had kind of a religious belief in it. Being wrong is great. If you knew everything, life would be boring. Yeah, it's cool that life is interesting enough, right? And chess is interesting enough that we can be wrong about things. Is King E7 a great move? It's a good move, Roshan Deep. I mean, it's not like a hard move to find because in this position here, the king's in check. And the rules of chess say you have to get your king out of check. So, a player of Ding's level, world champion, he's going to determine pretty quickly that there's only two ways to get the king out of check. Either you take the queen with your king or with your bishop. Then it's just a matter of deciding which move gives up more, right? So this move is going to lose one tempo on castling because you have to play rook e8, king f8. But if you want your rook on e8, it's not even really losing time at this point. And this move here is going to give up this diagonal. So I think for a world champion, the choice is not too hard to find. So I would say it's a good move, but a great move would suggest that that maybe Matt, Chess, and I wouldn't play it as well. But I'm pretty convinced that we would all that most of us watching would have played this move. Hive, yeah, I know that game, Asher. That's cool. Well, now Vasilios is saying that we actually guessed every engine move anyway. Go us, huh? Imagine how Carlsen would have felt if Jan Ludwig had been hired by Nepo. I mean, I guess he could have just... I guess he could have just said, oops, I should have hired my friend. So he wouldn't have been available for the other team. No, I mean, I think it's an interesting point, Achilles, to turn a situation around and ask what we would think of it. And also, you know, people are rarely going to hold themselves accountable for their own decisions. So I don't think he would see it the way I guessed that he would. Roshan Deep, there's an evaluation bar somewhere near the top of my head that I've put up that gives my evaluation of the position. Oh, it's really... And I'm going to lower the evaluation bar right now, so you're going to get to see it move, okay? Watch carefully. It's about to come down a little bit. I start the starting position at 0.15 these days. Maybe I'll bring it down to 0.12 one of these days. But I usually start it at 0.15. And here I think that some of White's potential opening advantage has already disappeared. I'm going to bring it down to 0.1. Did you see it go down a little bit there? When Jesse and Kostya join me, then we get the average of Jesse's evaluation, Kostya's evaluation, and mine, which can make it more accurate, right? When you average multiple people's opinions. So that's the idea of our human eval bar that's next to me there. That's right, Merles. If we get to try out 10 moves, we'll eventually get all the moves. Yeah, Alexa, there's almost a problem like the engines have gotten so strong that the evaluation looks too far ahead to be of use for humans anymore. Like the computer almost doesn't see small advantages anymore because it sees how to defend them, but a human would feel it in a game, right? And then also once there's an advantage, the computer will zip up to +4, +5 sometimes so fast when a human wouldn't. For a human, the advantage is not so obvious or so big, right? Michael thinks that black is already better, which is a dramatic take on the position. I don't mean that in a bad way. You know, it's just that's just a big thing to say so early in a game that black would already be better. Let me see if Gukesh played b3 here. No. Oh, right. Bishop g5 first to say maybe we'll double your pawns. Black says, I don't want the doubled pawns, which is a concession on the bishop. So honestly, Gukesh has already created a minuscule concession. So I don't know why we would start saying that black's already better. Like, white's done nothing wrong. The only reason black would be better if white can't even fight back with b3 anymore, if black has space and power to play b5 instead of trading off. But as long as Gukesh can play b3, cb3, ab3, there's no way he'd ever be worse as white yet, you know? Hey, Solitary Kid, welcome. You know, new players are welcome to ask everything. Come on in. I hope you feel welcome. What does it mean when people say that engines have ruined games? So do you know what a chess engine is, Solitaire Kid? More space, king in the center, no queens. There's still enough pieces on the board that it's not like an advantage to have the king in the center. It's not a disadvantage either. We're kind of at an amount of material, in my opinion, Michael, where the king's agnostic-ish to being on, you know, e8, f8, g8. But, you know, if white played knight d2 and black played b5 and white played rook e1 check, you know, I mean, the king still has to just sort of step out of the way, so it's a free tempo for white. It's not like a huge advantage, nor is it a problem, in my opinion. And as far as the space is a problem, Michael, if he plays b3 and black can play like b5 or knight b6 and hold the space, as I was just saying. But if he plays b3 and black still has to trade pawns, then the space is equal, right? So I'm still expecting b3 from white here. Look how fast Ding is playing. That's nice for him to play so quickly. Yeah, Stockfish and the likes. Yeah. Okay, so I guess and I'm saying the solitaire kid not to say that people are right. I'm just trying to explain the argument for you, right? So you know what it's about. When somebody says that the engines have ruined the game, I guess they would mean that people are not thinking for themselves anymore, that having like an oracle or an absolute truth, being able to basically consult God on chess positions, that would take away human creativity and insight and so forth. There's also a perspective that once computers are better than you, there's no point in playing. In other words, once the computer beat Kasparov, people started saying, well, why would you play chess? A computer can beat you anyway. Which would be kind of like, why would you do anything that a machine could do better, right? You could pick any sort of leisure activity or art or anything and then say, well, like a computer can create a better image of a chair than you. Why would you draw a chair? So that's a separate, those are two different reasons why people say that engines have kind of ruined the game. But, one of the points of chess is thinking, right? One of the main points of it probably is sort of thinking about things, reflecting, and so forth. And so let's see what he played. He played knight d2, no b3. Interesting. Right, why do math? You've got calculators, similar thing from Merle's, right? So, so if people are playing chess and not thinking as much, then that would be a way of saying like, hey, the point of chess has been ruined. If you're sort of just memorizing and coughing up ideas and moves that come from engines instead of from humans, then someone could say that that's somehow, not really the point of chess anymore. Maybe a third, right, why would you compete in running races? Says Asher, cars are faster, right? That whole same thing. So there's a third argument related to computer engines, which is that computer engines have spoiled specifically top-level chess. So this would say, if you're 1,000 or 1,500 or 300 or whatever, computers haven't spoiled chess. But that if you're like a super grandmaster like these guys, the computers have spoiled chess by investigating the openings too far and too thoroughly, and therefore they spend like 90% of their time memorizing engine moves in the opening instead of just playing or thinking about it themselves. So that's sort of like a third attack. But Solitaire Kid thinks we should still play music. I agree with you, Solitaire Kid. I think we should still play music and still play chess, if we enjoy it and gain something from those activities, right? All right. So knight bd2 from Gukesh, and this is the biggest surprise of the game for me so far. Somebody asked me actually in general if I'm surprised by Gukesh's approach to this game, playing the exchange French, trading queens. No. In a certain sense, it's hard for Gukesh to surprise me anymore because I know that he plays all kinds of different styles and tries all kinds of different positions. So, this far in the game, there was nothing that surprised me. I didn't predict what he would do. So, there's a difference between being surprised and being able to predict, right? To me, Gukesh is unpredictable. Therefore, it's hard for me to predict what he does, but it's also hard for me to be surprised by what he does, right? That doesn't mean there's nothing that would surprise me, right? If he had played g4 on move 1, I would have been surprised on move 1. Because to me, that move is too bad and too far outside of what he normally does. So, I could still be surprised, right? But e4 is not a surprise, exchange French is not a surprise, and the queen trade is not a surprise. Now, this will seem minor, but this is the first surprise to me, and it's not like a shocker to me, but because I've been mostly chatting with you guys rather than calculating deeply, but my instinct would have been b3 as the move here. And I think this is the move where once he's not played b3, there's a chance that that means Ding can now maybe have time to support the whole structure with b5. Although, against b5, there's a4. Yeah, and now you can play b4. And if you don't play a4, if you play something like b3, now he's got time for a6, and he can hold structure. So once Gukesh plays knight bd2, this is the move that now says black can hold their whole space on the queen side if they want it. And yeah, like I think it was Michael Merck was saying earlier, if black holds this space on the queen side in this sort of endgame / queenless middle game, it could feel like an advantage. Not like black would necessarily have the full advantage, but it itself would be an advantage to hold this space. I agree with that. So I think that with him not playing b3 or a4 and sort of developing more quickly, that tells me that Gukesh is planning to go rook e1 and sink the knight on e5. If we'd been analyzing the position more deeply, and I'm not pro or against us chatting about all these topics, if we were analyzing more deeply, we would have come up with the idea of rook e1, knight e5, and talking about the merits of that plan versus the b3 plan. This is not like an impossible idea to come up with and to discuss. I had considered for him in this position here, knight e5 already, because black doesn't want to give this very good bishop. And then when the knight comes out, you can lock in the e5 square. This is grabbing space at the cost of development. Gukesh, I think, is doing a variation of that, but with more... sorry, b5 hasn't been played yet. But with more development. He's going for rook e1, knight e5. And let's say black played this b5 move, which now I'm not necessarily thinking black would. Remember, we get a tempo on the king with rook e1. And then if the king goes this way, we've got knight e5. So f7 gets hit. If black takes here, it's probably bad news over here. There is this combination where you can go h6, and when the bishop goes back, g5, and you save your knight. But in this position, white can probably take. Right? And this doesn't work in a lot of middle games or openings, but here suddenly the pawn can more or less queen, and white wins. Okay, so king could go the other direction. Knight e5. Now f7's defended at least, right? I would say still black's not pumped about trading on e5. If you trade here, you've given up that good bishop, which I wouldn't want to do. If you trade here, you get two minor pieces attacked by the pawn, so you lose a piece. So still black's going to be allowing the knight to e5, and then, trying to just develop like this. And the question becomes, look at this kind of idea. I'm just going to show you that there's some different ideas or pressures from this. We're not going to get exhaustive in a snap on this, but here you can pick this famous Fischer-Spassky pawn. Black can't trap the bishop because against g6, white has checkmate, literally checkmate before move 20. So you snack the pawn, and then you should be able to back out with an extra pawn. And yeah, you can certainly torture black with a full extra pawn in this endgame. Yeah. So perhaps more likely h6, as Merle says, getting the pawn out from under the pressure of this bishop. By the way, Ding having his first real think of the game right now, by the way, as we also are having kind of our first real look at the position instead of just discussing questions around chess. Thank you for the raid, Damien, and welcome, folks. We are watching the World Championship here, so hopefully that whets your appetite. It's kind of an exciting chess event. We've got 18-year-old Gukesh challenging the world champion Dingley Ren for the title in a 14-game match. We're watching game 5 here today. They've each won one game with 2 draws. So h6, kicking the bishop would make sense. I'm actually rooting for both of them, Damien. I like both of these players. Huge fan of these guys myself, yeah. Okay, so now the bishop could go to f4 or h4. There's some pressure either way on black's position, but at least the h7 pawn isn't hanging. So that part is nice for black. Trading on f6 is no good. And trading on d7 doesn't seem to really help. So probably something like bishop f4 here. And then white's going to be threatening knight d7, check, bishop takes d6. So black's going to have to safeguard the bishop there. Gukesh's variety of play, Dimayam, is typical for somebody who's trying to become world champion. But a lot of people are content to master a somewhat more limited number of openings, and they can get to a pretty high level. But Gukesh is trying to basically know everything about chess, more or less. His choice is very, very ambitious. So he has more variety to his openings than the average super grandmaster even. Most super grandmasters play a variety of openings, but Gukesh's variety is slightly higher. Hopefully that's like a good enough answer to your question here. Excuse me, I'm sick. Even if you didn't have knight d7, would knight g6 be good? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I have Jesse's name on and Jesse hasn't yet joined us. Jesse joined me yesterday. I'll take his name off. I'm David. Nice to meet you, Jar Beef. There are some GMs who play only 1 or 2 openings for 30 years. Yeah, very few super GMs like that. For a long time, Dingley Ren only played 1d4, and he was the only one out of 30 super grandmasters who could never play 1e4. But, you know, he started playing it occasionally. You know, he played it, I think, once at the Olympiad. He played it once in this match already against Gukesh. So, Roshan Deep, we do see c4 as the first move. You mean English? 1 c4 move 1? It is played at the top level. Dingley Ren plays it a lot in the last year or two. I thought he would play it. I thought he would play it in one of his first 2 games as white in this match, but I was wrong so far. Jesse's probably sleeping a little bit. It's 4:40 a.m. where he lives. He'll join us when he gets up. And he'll get up, you know, at whatever, 4:30 or 5 or 5:30, something pretty early. He'll join us. Okay. So to Eldorado's question, even knight g6 would be good for white, because after pawn takes, bishop takes, well, I mean, I can show it. We'll pretend we don't have knight d7 winning a piece, folks, and just get this position that Eldorado's asking about. Here, white gets control of e7, and this bishop is great. And black's bishop was really good. So black will then have something called weak dark squares. If you don't know what those are, we'll talk about them at various times. But basically, these squares are going to be very hard for black to defend with only a light squared bishop, and with white having a dark squared bishop. And the most relevant in particular is this rook's going to be able to get into e7 pretty quickly. And white can win the pawn on g6, right? Like here, you push the king away from defending the pawn, and then you can grab this pawn. And yeah, blacks just can't get the white pieces out of their position anymore. They're controlling the squares too well inside black's position there. So that would be very good for white. Every good opening is drawish, Roshan Deep, but the English opening is perfectly good. It's an A+ or whatever S tier opening. You can play it at the World Championship level for sure, game after game if you want to. So I think here black might have to play a move like King G8. But then white has knight d7. Shoot, that still crushes black. Look at that. This bishop's hanging, so if you recapture on d7, you lose a piece. And if you go here, white gets check, here. At least it's not back rank mate. Then you move the knight, and black can try and trade the rook. Let's keep our rook since it's better than black's rook. Black's now, with the bishop pair, going to successfully chase our rook out of the position and counter with rook e8 with good chances of saving the game, except my knight e3 idea is about to win me a pawn. Here, black can't stop the double threat of knight d5 and knight f5. This is what I was going for with knight f1. By the way, I know there was a lot going on. We had the rook in on the back rank that we could try to make into an advantage, but this was my counter that I had in mind to take advantage of the trades and the structure. So, okay, maybe here black can't play rook e8. Needs to deal with this move. Maybe here, here, here. Defending this and this. And the game would go on. I don't feel like black should be dead, but f4, rook e8. So now if I go f5, I can't take the pawn because my rook's undefended. So here I need to spend a move defending my rook. Black's still under pressure here trying to keep this pawn alive, right? Also wants to go rook b8 and b4 in these endgames, basically play for counterplay. But you can see as black, I'm kind of struggling to defend this b pawn, right? With the bishop. I couldn't do it from the other side because I didn't have a way to deal with knight f5. So we found a few unpleasantnesses for black in this line here, right? A few little unpleasantnesses. This is pretty relevant stuff. So that was king g8, knight d7, not crushing looking, but with this maneuver, made life a little annoying for black. Honestly, I don't even... Yeah, rook e7 makes sense. But I could also just go rook all the way back to e1 immediately. Then black can just play rook d8 and defend the pawn more that way. Yeah, okay, so I bothered the piece, chased this, retreated, tried to trade rooks, and I win. Then I tried this move. Okay, another move would be I come here with the rook. I don't try and trade it, but I defend these two spots. And then after knight e3... knight f5 is still annoying. Because, look, knight f5 still has the idea of, like, winning this pawn. Check. I don't think I can bring the king to one of these squares because of knight e7. The bishop checks the king, and we drop this bishop. So knight gets to f5. King has to drop back a little passively. And it feels like white's got still a small edge. You could even change the nature of your edge, like this, and just press the better bishop against worse bishop. Rook's on the 7th, attacking black's stuff, you know, or you just put this bishop here, so you control that diagonal, and this bishop can't get out. You could press this kind of ending as white. Certainly black's got isolated pawns to attack, a weak d-pawn, and weak dark squares still. There's a plan in this position to play b3 and infiltrate your king through a3, b4, and then either c5 or a5 to attack black's pawns on the queen side. So this is a little something. I'm 20 moves afield, but just getting a feel for the position now. It's the first time all day that I've indulged in moving some pieces around and getting an idea. Getting some idea of what's going on and what the position could feel like if we were playing it. Alexa, interesting question. Could black go after white like this instead of defending? Yeah. Certainly possible. So white is going to have to play an important move there, Alexa, rook c7. Because otherwise, black's going to fully unwind in a move as well as having this nice attack. So I have to discoordinate black's pieces. The bishop only has this square, which isn't good. Right? And now I suspect I'm going to be a little bit better for white here, Alexa, after this rook c7 move. I suspect. I'm strongly considering playing knight f5, giving up the b pawn, versus playing like b3 or something, right? I don't know. Yeah, Lucky Fritter, I do some of both. This is the first time I've looked 20 moves ahead. And I'm doing it to get a sense of what he's up to in the current position. But if you've got any questions about why they did what they did on the very last move, I'm happy to take a stab at it. Knight BD2 is the last move in the game, right? So I can tell you why he played this, Lucky Fritter. I think I can. It's because the idea is to go rook e1 check, tempo the king, and establish a knight on e5. And what I've been guessing at in this variation 20 moves ahead is basically how big a problem is it for black when the white knight arrives on e5. That's what we're trying to understand. We figured out that likely this is Gukesh's idea to plop the knight on e5. And Dingley Ren's been thinking, by the way, for maybe 20 minutes on this move, right? Which is part of why this is the first time we've gone deep into a variation as well. So Ding is taking this idea very seriously right now, trying to figure out how he wants to handle this knight coming into e5 pretty soon. I think you are getting c3, Alexa, so I was very unsure of that position we had at the end. I just wanted to make Lucky Fritter feel welcome here. That's why I backtracked on the line. So this is the stakes, Lucky Fritter, right? Normally in these positions, by the way, Lucky, white plays... First of all, they don't trade the rooks like this. But normally white plays b3, undermining black's extra space on the queen side. That's the normal approach for white in this pawn structure. Because if you let black play b5 and then develop the pieces behind that space and maybe play a5 and b4, then this pawn structure for black can be a noticeable advantage to have that space. So normally white fights back against it. Here, Gukesh is doing something really quite unusual. First trading off one rook, threatening to double pawns on f6, and going for a very, very hasty development. By trading one rook, his remaining rook is going to be felt more as like the only presence on the e-file, and he's going to establish a knight on e5. Now, one part of that, and I don't know if black's even going to play b5, but one part of that is, rook e1, king d8, is going to be that, you know, black's going to have to decide which way the king goes. Does the king stay in the center, or does the king stay a little bit off to the king's side to protect that f7 pawn, which is very hard for any other piece to protect. So after I looked at this for a little bit, I thought, yeah, there's just no way to protect f7, and you can't trade the knight on e5 right away. It's very, very bad. So I decided black would probably go king f8, and then we put this knight e5 move on the board and analyzed it for a while. And just getting a feel for how things could go. Not looking at every single move perfectly or anything like that. We did have black playing h6, Michael Merck. And then when white played bishop f4, there wasn't time to play g5 anymore. Let's suppose black doesn't play b5. You kill all knights that jump into you after the board. I mean, in general, that's a pretty good approach to capture when your opponent's knight comes to e5. I can show you why you can't do it in the move order I played, but then we could try and find a better move order to be able to do it. But here, if he trades like this, the pawn comes in and attacks two pieces, and he loses, right? Second, if he takes with this bishop, then his dark squares become really weak, and this dark square bishop of white's seems to be able to kind of rule the board. And white's going to get a pretty nice advantage, I believe, there. With many different variations that could lead to it, but I'm pretty convinced white would have a nice position. So if you want to capture the knight when it comes to e5, which, by the way, Lucky Fritter, the part where you're right on is it's nice to trade off a piece that plops into a square like e5. The longer you let it sit there, the more it gets established and grows roots and becomes harder to deal with. But the part that you're wrong about is you can't always do it. You may want to, but you can't always do it. So let's try to see if we can prepare a way for black to trade it in advance. So I'm going to start by moving my king this way so I don't run into this. White's going to play rook e1, preparing knight e5. And now I'm going to play bishop c7. I get out of the way of a pawn double attack, right? So after knight e5 takes, we can just retreat the knight here. Oh, sorry. I missed an amateur question. I'm trying to understand how drawish this position is. If you had white and Stockfish, would you always be able to win this position against Magnus? Yeah, Stockfish wouldn't always beat Magnus, but most of the time. How drawish is the position? I mean, not overwhelmingly so. Let's just say if you were 1500 and your opponent were 1500 and you played this game, you would probably only have, one draw every 5 games, just like normal. You wouldn't see a huge incidence of draws. Same with 700 versus 700 or 2000 versus 2000. I don't think the odds of a draw are hugely higher than just on average from the starting position. My take. Yeah, if you didn't have a knight on f6, you could just play f6 yourself. That makes sense too, Lucky Fritter. Let's see if we can engineer that in time. So we go king f8, rook e1. Let's move the knight to e8. And now against knight e5, you can play f6, right? And now basically you're forcing white to just make a trade, back off, and the black pieces come back out. And everything's good, right? Here Lucky Fritter's ideas work nicely. I think the issue perhaps with this Lucky Fritter is when the knight leaves f6 to be able to play f6, it leaves the h7 pawn hanging. And white might be able to nab your pawn here. It's a little bit complicated. You would try to trap the bishop to make white pay for what they've done to your friend the pawn, right? You would check and block. So the check keeps the king from coming here and winning the bishop. That gives white time to extricate it. But still, black has this idea of knight f6 coming. So how does it go now? I think white goes here to defend it. This knight comes here. White has a choice now between like h4, h5, or just bringing this knight to e5. So this position, Lucky Fritter, I'm going to cut it off at this point because, other people like you might get annoyed that we're 10 moves down in variation. And I'm going to cut it off here and say I can't tell you whether or not this worked out for white or not at this point. Okay? But my instinct is, I don't even have like a very clear instinct. There's some chance that white will get away with this and some chance they won't. Black can now try to trap this piece instead of that piece. It's rather complicated. Merles is saying another option would be to take at this point, sacking the bishop, and then play rook here, attacking that bishop. Black has to save that bishop. Then Merles is going to grab a third pawn over here. Black's going to defend the knight. And this is going to be another complicated scenario. White's got 3 pawns against the piece, but will the pawns or the piece be better? We don't yet know at this point. I can't answer you this one either. We're going to stay away from the nevers on my channel, Lucky. What you should know is that Feingold is more of a chess joker than a chess teacher. He is a grandmaster, and I'm sure he teaches people often. But I think most of the time when he's just sort of talking, he's making jokes. He's not teaching you lessons. So on my channel, we're going to take some of the nevers and alwayses out of your approach to chess. Just gently, we're going to suggest that You may have lots of good ideas, but most of your ideas, no matter how good they are not always going to work. So if you want to trade when the piece comes to e5, great idea, but it's not going to work every time. If you want to play f6 to control the e5 square, you can do that sometimes. It's not going to be a never thing. There are positions where f6 is weakening. There's positions where it's great. Hi, Alexandra. Muchas gracias para visitarnos. Espero que estés bien. Folks, here's a link to follow Alexandra Chess. She's a very wonderful chess player. You might like to follow her channel. I think there's a very good chance you would. So there's a link for that. For those of you joining us from the raid, probably most of you know what the World Chess Championship match is. It's between Gukesh and Ding. This is game 5, which is on, and we're watching and analyzing it. Some chatters on YouTube are telling me Hikaru says it's not drawish. Judith says it is drawish. Wow. Judith says it is drawish. That somehow became a tongue twister for me. How can I tell whether people in the comment section are just giving me engine lines or not? Asks Call Me Tomorrow. We ask that people not give engine variations in our chat because in general, 99% of the people who are here on the Dojo channel watching are here specifically because they don't want to know the engine's answer. They want the drama and the mystery and the think for yourself experience. I've got a lot of experience. Call Me Tomorrow. That's kind of how I know. It's not perfect, as you can tell. Kramnik, a much better player than me, is not always perfect in his intuition of when people are using an engine or not. But I've got a fair amount of experience with streaming and having people chat, as I am perhaps the first person to ever stream chess. And you know, I have some sense and instinct of when people are engineering. Then I try to not read their comments. Okay. Back to the position, yeah? So let's get closer to the real position. Ding has now been thinking for half an hour, over half an hour on this move after Gukesh's knight bd2. Going for rook e5, knight e5. Rook e1, knight e5. So he's in a deep think. You know, does he want to go h6 right away? Maybe. Which way is he going to step with the king? Even if he plays h6, before Gukesh reveals which way his bishop is stepping, he's going to check the king, and Ding's going to have to reveal which direction his king is stepping. I feel like he's probably going to have to go to f8, based on the little bit I've looked at here. The first event that I streamed, QTom Red, the first chess streaming I did was it called like Nanjing Pearl tournament? It was in November 2009, and it was the tournament where Magnus reached #1 in rating, I think, right before his 19th birthday. So he was like 18, and Topalov was playing in that tournament. So if you know of somebody who streamed chess before 2009, this is not like a piece of info that I'm confident on, this whole thing. I'm not trying to claim a title, but... All right. Asher confirms that h6 was played, which we're just starting to look at. And I see that it's Ding's move again, which means that Gukesh probably instantly played rook e1. Oh, he didn't. Wow. I was pretty certain that he would check the king and make black show him where he's going. That's actually pretty surprising to me. Have we looked at black trying king f8, h6, g5 in some order? That's what we're just starting to look at, Bradley. Yeah, we're just getting into that possibility. Shall we look at g5 here? I bet that Ding expected rook e1 too. Gukesh was not surprised by h6 though, in this fast response, throwing the ball back to Ding. Let me look if Ding looks like he's actually going to have a think here. We've got their web cameras over here. Yeah, he looks like he's actually thinking again. He's not just going to blitz out the response yet. He looks a little nervous, mildly uncomfortable. By Ding standards, not super uncomfortable, but he looks mildly uncomfortable. You guessed h6 in chat. Yeah, h6 seemed likely, but Asher, like me, is surprised that rook e1, king f8 didn't get played before bishop h4. I expected rook e1, king f8, bishop h4. So, should we look at g5 a little bit? Oh, I've been sent a link. That means the boss is in the building. Let's open up YouTube. No, let's open up Zoom. Stay co-host. Bring in Jesse's chair. 1 second, folks. We're gonna get Jesse in here to join us. All right. So initially, that always confuses my webcam. So let's fix my webcam first, and then let's add Jesse's chair. Zoom meeting. There's Jesse's chair. All right. Hi, Gabriele. Or Gabriella. Good to hear from you. Thank you for sharing your opinion on that. Acratic's got dengue fever. That sounds pretty bad. Sounds much worse than fever. Yes, for those wondering, it was not on Twitch. Twitch didn't exist yet back then, I think. When I streamed, there definitely was not yet Twitch. Oof. Okay. So, and now let's get back to the position. Okay, so we're thinking maybe g5, or that's what chat was wondering about, right? What about g5, bishop g3? Oh, Alexa, if you want to watch something from 2009, you might need my ancient hard drive that has some of them maybe saved on it. But it was on a platform called Livestream. Good name, right? But they're not the biggest now. And I doubt that they've held the VODs that long. Way long ago. We definitely are all coming out of bed for this stream, Sat. There's no way around it. I did actually do this a couple times today. My hair was much worse as I was walking from my bed to the stream. And I did something very rare for me by sort of doing this a little bit because I thought it was going to be offensive. I thought it was going to be so bad that it was going to, like, some people weren't going to be able to even see the chessboard. They were just going to talk about my hair. So,
dude, you are a champ, man. You've been doing this every day.
Boom.
Every day. You're not messing around, dude.
No, we're not messing around for sure. Neither are Gukesh or Ding. They're playing for real here. Well, Lucky Fritter, rook e1 was the most logical reply. I don't think he's going to think for half an hour again. But he surely expected rook e1, just like the majority of us here in chat expected rook e1.
Oh, dude, this is so funny. We got an exchange variation, bro. Oh, yeah. All right, I got to tell a story about this exchange. So, I've played the exchange, the French forever. And I remember some GMs would talk to me in the like late 90s, they'd be like, oh, I would never do it because of the exchange. That could never be my opening. But basically, no one did it, dude.
Yeah.
No one played it.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 4 or 5 years ago, Carlson started dabbling in it. And the computer was saying maybe white had like plus point two, you know? And so then I started seeing it a lot, you know? Then I started seeing it a lot. Okay, so five on five, C5 on move five, David, I would say is not the main line. If play, I would say bishop d6 is the most solid. So ding,
Yeah, that's right.
to a certain extent, is mixing it up here with c5. Anyways,
Yeah.
c3.
And just to catch you up on a tiny bit of the story of the game, Jesse.
Yeah.
Gukesh was the first person to think in this game. And he spent, a few moves here and there, starting from Ding playing c5. He spent 2-3 minutes here and there. And I'm just going to back up one move, Jesse. Before Gukesh, or when Gukesh played knight d2, Ding had an hour and 52 minutes and a half, something like that. So he'd basically just been playing his moves and writing them down up to move 14. And Gukesh was at an hour 37, behind 15 minutes, and people were saying, like, his prep doesn't look very good, right? Like, he got out prepped and all. And I said, well, it's just one, who's out prepping who or picking the opening is just one out of, 100 small battles that occur over the course of a game. And then Ding thought for half an hour after knight d2 on h6. So up to that point, he had a ton of time. And then he played h6. So I think with knight d2, he realized Gukesh isn't playing b3 or anything like that to counter the space advantage. He's going for a quick rook e5, knight e5. Right? So he played h6, and then Gukesh surprised us by not throwing in rook e1. Because you'd think rook e1, you force black to show you which direction they're going with the king. You're playing rook e1 to get that piece of information. It seemed like a basic move. Gukesh played bishop h4 instantly after the 30-minute think, and then Ding thought another 10 minutes before choosing knight h5 here. So he was mildly surprised, or a bit surprised, by bishop h4, not rook e1, right? Because if you think 30 minutes, normally your opponent plays bishop h4, you play your next move. All right.
Okay, let's just pause here for a moment to reflect.
Yeah.
He's got the French in round one.
Yeah.
So he knows it might happen again. And then his team is, pounding. I'm sure they had other variations than we played round one. But then they're like, let's do this. Okay, my just first intuition is that someone on his team after game one was like, dude, you cannot play with space. You do not know how to play with space. And we're not going to let you even try playing with space.
I mean, I think it would have been less complete than that. I mean, if you're not allowed to ever take a space advantage, that's like, a pretty big thing to be not allowed. I mean, Gukesh is a boss, right? I mean, he's, one of the youngest grandmasters of all time, one of the youngest 2700s of all time, youngest world championship challenger of all time. He can play any opening.
Okay. That was just my first response.
Yeah.
So then also, like when you just think about the number of different weapons that white has against the French, to throw this bad boy out there, kind of bizarre.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, whenever you get into this position sufficiently, add your evaluation to mine, and it'll adjust our little eval bar.
Oh, okay, I might change it, but I think it's dead equal. So.
You think it's 0 right now? I can already throw that up for you then.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a world where there are these computers, and their evaluating is a little bit better for white, but I'm a traditionalist, dude.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
I'm a traditionalist. I have my I have my sensibilities.
I disagree with Merle saying that playing the exchange French implies you have nothing. I mean, as Jesse was just saying, Magnus and others have dabbled in playing the exchange French and
Right.
trying to get some little something out of it. And one of the things about Gukesh is his style is close to universal. Like he's happy to grind end games, equal positions, wild positions. Like it's not super clear that the guy like what his preference is even. He plays such a variety.
Now I think we're agreed that rook e1 doesn't really do anything. The king is just going to f8 anyway.
Well, what one thing rook e1 might do is give the bishop a way out of this trap, Jesse. After rook e1, king f8, white does have the option of bishop d8, keeping the piece.
Okay.
And I need to cover one basic thing because so many people have asked about it in chat. They're like, what's the idea of knight h5? Like half the people in chat wanted to play knight h5 and half the people in chat are like, why did he play knight h5? Right?
I think knight h5 is a good move, so I'll try to explain.
Okay.
Black's best piece is the bishop on b6. White, when he's playing bishop h4, sometimes white will even play bishop h4, bishop g3 voluntarily without even seeing h6 on the board. So also if we had bishop g3 and he took hg is, you could argue the f4 square is kind of nice. Also, we want to add that in this position, if white could achieve a knight e5 at some point, the pawn on h6 could be kind of funny because then there's no f6, like at knight g6 or something. It's just a thought. So the knight on h5 prevents the bishops being traded on g3 and enables knight f4 ideas. And the knight f4 ideas, in some variations, could be annoying for white. So that's the main idea with knight h5.
Yeah.
And black, in his turn, could say, hey, maybe I'll get the two bishops, and someday later that could prove to be a thing. So I think, let's see about our variations here. I think obviously b3 is a move. And then I know I just said rook e1 was dumb, but we could consider rook e1, king f8, knight e5.
Yeah.
I don't think that's that special, but I just want to mention it. Also, we want to mention the knight on d2 is poor. So we can always consider a move like knight f1. Usually in these positions, b3 isn't that impressive. But here it's definitely, I came right at the right moment, David.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we gotta get Gukesh one of his famous things.
You avoided Ding's 30-minute think, and we're right at the heart of the game now. Whether or not white's going to get anything, right? Nobody's winning yet, Ali. Asher thinks that the bishop d8 move loses the bishop. Do you want to have a quick look at that, Jesse?
I also don't know why we're doing it, though, David. Why are we putting the bishop way down deep in there?
Why? That's a valuable piece. Just hanging on to it. Hup! Here I come. Knight e5. He thinks he's going to play bishop b7 and force the bishop back to h4, right? Sure, so bishop d8 is foolish. Okay, nobody likes this move. Knight e5, d5. Where does this black bishop go? I want to trade this bishop. It doesn't have a lot of space. If he goes to e7, I'm just trading it. And then playing knight f3, knight d4. So it might go to c5. And then I was thinking I might play b4.
All right, David, how about this? Let me just try to break it down in terms of dynamics a little bit. So these are white's problems. The knight on d2 is poor.
Mm-hmm.
Our king is worse than black's king. Our bishop on h4, it's a reasonable piece that doesn't want to get exchanged. So black's problems are the potentially weak pawn on d5, the mangle of development, right? So the knight on d7 must move, the bishop must move, and we need to get the rook out.
Mm-hmm.
So really, like we could say, it's white has just a touch more time before black gets himself out of this mess.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, then we expect black to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably is fine even right now, but it is true that what we would want to do is create some kind of drama right now that would kind of keep the initiative on black so that they can't actually get all their coconuts out reasonably.
Absolutely. White wants to start something. Makes sense, right? If you've got time, you want to start something.
All right, David, I'm sure you've already done this 1,000 times, but let's first just play with B3. So I'm going to go B3. How do you want to play?
Okay. I'm guessing black. Actually, I'll play G5.
Okay.
I was about to reflexively just trade on B3, but let me throw this in and make sure I get your bishop. Once my knight's on H5, I want to trade it. I want to make sure this operation is successful.
By the way, just while you're thinking about this, one interesting thing about G5 is that is a clue to my knight on D2 that E3 might be at square.
Oh yeah, I've already played knight F1 to E3 once or twice in analysis. That's definitely a thing. But I'm not thinking about it. I played G5.
No, okay, so I have bishop G3.
Yeah. I trade with the knight, of course.
I think knight F4 is also thought, but okay.
Not for me.
But, well, now you can't do it. That's
right.
What
I did it with the chain here. Yeah. Okay. Now, the super maximal move would be B5. But that would be like if I thought Ding was better here. I would play B5.
Okay, so let's just say if B5, then black has to claim that after A4, there's going to need to be B4.
Yeah.
Maybe. I kind of don't believe it, but that would be what you'd want to consider. CB is the normal move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can put the normal move first if you want.
Okay.
Keep it a little simpler.
So CB, AB.
Especially because B5 is only trying to prove an advantage for black. I don't need B5. You play AB here?
Yeah. And then I'm going to guess knight F6.
Yeah, I'll just play a normal move. I don't need to get too deep.
Okay. Good variation. I think black is fine.
Black looks golden, right?
Black is fine. Okay, good. Let's go back to knight H5 and just pursue a couple other variations now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have rook E1, knight F1. All right, I'm going to try knight F1.
Okay. By the way, one other candidate move that you haven't mentioned yet is G4. But if we need it, that's another move.
That didn't even cross my mind. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you go knight F1. I think black wants to go G5. Bishop G3, take it, and then knight F6 again, right?
Oh.
What else are we ever doing?
Well, you're also giving me the option of recapturing with a knight, which maybe is interesting.
Oh, okay. You can do that if you want.
But I'm thinking about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just try it. HG.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming knight f6, knight e3, maybe bishop e6.
I'm just gonna go king f8.
All right, so now maybe at least I have a plan here in this position, and I can play knight e5 and intend to play f4 next. And say maybe maybe I can talk about being a little bit better.
I mean, I'll play b5 and also talk about being better on the queen side, right?
F4.
Black's position looks correct to me. For anyone in chat, if white ever plays knight f5 attacking my stuff, I've planned to trade my bishop for it. So I'm not being precious about the bishop pair advantage. I don't think I've got any huge advantage. I've got a weak square. If knight f5 ever happens, I'm willing to trade it.
Okay, David. So f4, what do you want to do?
And the other thing is, if white ever goes bishop f5, then I don't want to trade that bishop and let white's knight come to f5. Then I'm going to play bishop e6 in general. So that if white ever trades the bishop, they don't get f5 for their knight. Okay, sorry, Jesse, I mean, I know you know all that. Chad needs to know what I'm doing. f4. Okay, so Jesse wants to play rook f1 and mess with me there. Out of an abundance of caution, I will play king g7.
Okay, good. All right, so let's think about black's. I think white has prospects here. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
But black, if black does have a plan, it's maybe like b4 and rook b8.
That is my plan. Yep, you got it. That's what I was up to.
To try to say we don't have to move the bishop on c8 ever.
Right. Well, I mean, I wasn't going to pay a tempo with it when I didn't have to, right? I mean, I might move it at some point.
Well, white's claim in this position is if I'm better, it's because your bishop is funky, right? Also, in this position, at some point, David could think about knight h5 and f6, just simply. Well, actually, excuse me, you can't do knight h5 until. You probably can't do knight h5 until you fix d5, but maybe you still could even play that
No, I thought I was just trying to defend this pawn.
All right, Capablanca said, put your pawns on the opposite color of your bishop. So I'm going to play a3.
Okay. So you're still, like, excited about this thing?
I think it's an interesting line for us to go down, just to kind of give ourselves and the people watching us just a general sense.
Yeah. So far, I'm playing pretty simple moves, so I'm just blitzing them out. Rook b8. That's literally what we didn't learn, Lucky Fritter.
Okay, so that's a reasonable sample line. I agree. Black is basically okay. It would be an interesting game. Game. Okay, so let's go back. That's the knight h5. So we've had a sample line with b3, a sample line with knight f1. Okay, I'll tell you why I don't intuitively like rook e1, but we're going to rook e1, knight e5. But let's look at it because it's violent. So rook e1, king f8, knight e5. Now, let me just stress, the reason I'm not 100% on this is simply because it kind of feels like I'm letting your knight on d7 out. In fact, I might just be willing to say no. But okay, let's do a sample line with it. So he's got, first of all, black's got 1,000 options. I'm not necessarily threatening anything yet. And knight, the very simple knight e5 DE bishop C5. I'm not really sure what I'm doing there. He wants G5. Okay, so bishop G3.
You want, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Just knight e5, bishop c5 looks pretty okay as well.
Well, you choose. You choose. Just to do a sample
I
line. You
don't
play
feel
what,
like black's
what you.
threatened either way. I don't like knight e5 myself at the moment. Like, I don't love it.
I agree. Let's just do a little sample line
Okay.
because I do think it's one
Well,
of
I'll
the
play
main.
g5.
Okay, so G5, bishop
Bishop
G3.
g3. It just clarifies. It's a little bit easier to see what we're talking about. So I'll trade on g3. Then I will trade on e5. And then play bishop c5.
Fair. Okay.
Maybe you just play knight f3 to d4, but you could also look at b3 or something, or b3, b4 or something.
Okay, and let's say black is fine. And one of the things to say as well is that if white had a plan here, it would be f4 someday. But when I do play f4, first of all, I have to organize it.
Yeah.
And then that bishop on c5 is looking great.
He's just played rook e1, king f8, by the way.
Okay.
King f8 was played instantly.
And now we're going to see his idea.
Yeah.
Well, there's no other move besides king f8.
Yep.
There's no other move.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could still play knight f1. We didn't look at this weird g4 thing.
Gukesh is hesitating, though, even though king f8 was super obvious. Hesitating a little bit.
Okay, let's throw this g4 move on the board, David.
Which one?
G4.
G4. Okay. So black's got a million options, but let's look at g5 first.
Okay, so let's go through the options. The very basic knight h f6, knight f4, and g5.
Yeah.
G5 is the one I'm maybe a little hopeful on just because I can at least win a pawn here. With GH, GH, knight H. And now my knight looks at F5.
Knight F6, trying to win back the pawn on H5.
Maybe I got a little something here. You know, got bishop D1 like a sadster.
Yeah. Actually, Jesse, maybe bishop F5 is good here.
Maybe, but when you take
No,
on
the bishop's always got F4 actually.
You have once your knight gets to H5, it then goes to F4. So the problem isn't with that I want to prevent is not so much your getting the pawn so much, but rather I don't want you to get the
Yeah. All right. I'm not impressed, but okay, you're saying bishop D1 like a sadster. Keeping the knight at bay. Keeping that extra
maybe a reason he's hesitating is G4 is so committal that it's like, holy catolis, black can do so much.
Yeah, also if your plan is G4, G5, knight F6, and knight F4, you have to calculate all three of them. It's a bit of work.
But okay, let me just approach it like from a principled standpoint for a second. So it looks wrong, especially because of knight F4, David. Like, what would white do after knight F4?
My first guess, bishop G3. Which doesn't necessarily do much either, but...
Right. So if we played bishop G3, the intention could be like, oh, if he goes knight F6, then I'm going to play knight E5.
Yeah, then you cut off that piece on F4. I mean, and if black plays G5, then maybe, you know, H4, F6.
But if I play G5, I don't think you want H4 because F6 is an improvement of my position.
But it's also... It also gives some square, right? So
Yeah, this would be just incredibly hot.
yeah.
This would be very hot. And after G5, black is knight F6 is going to be something you got to think about
Right.
because
That's
E4
the other
pawn is
reason for
broken.
h4 is if you have to play f6, at least I don't have to deal with knight f6 then.
Eventually, you're going to have to deal with defending
G pawn, right?
G
I
pawn.
have no way to do it with h3 right now.
Actually, David, maybe I could come around,
So
for example,
h4, f6. Now I
and
can
then knight
go
F1,
knight
and then knight
f1.
F1, and
And
then the E3 knight would be a hero.
exactly. If you had knight f6, I can't defend the g pawn sufficiently with just knight e3, but now against like knight b6, I could.
Let me just say, as a French player, this is disastrous. Because I don't want to be playing. The whole beauty of the French is when we get the French structure. And
Mm-hmm.
now every chump in the land is going to be hitting me with exchange French, dude. They do become interesting games, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
They do often become interesting
The
games.
interest builds. Gukesh's time is going, so he's not comfortable with whatever he planned.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that.
So also Jesse after g4, g5,
Uh-huh.
White could also try to take on g5 with the bishop instead of taking on h5. At first glance, this looks even nastier than what we did before, but now the h5 pawn is a passed pawn. And I have this idea that if it goes to h6, with the bishop on c2, it's not so easy for black to go clean up that pawn. I know everything else about my position is nasty.
I just want to echo something you said, David. It's a little remarkable that he plays rook e1 and then doesn't have his next move set.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things like, you might force yourself to play rook e1 because you've thought forever and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then your opponent plays king f8 and you're like, oh, this g4 thing, man. That's too hectic.
Yeah, Asher, black doesn't have time for king g7 here because I'm threatening knight takes g5. And if black plays g4, well, it's a big decision. And then I have several moves for white. Knight h4, knight e5. That black has to worry about. You want to go to h6? No, you're dropping the f pawn too. I mean, and at some point I'm up too many pawns, even if they're doubled and nasty. And they just start adding up to lots of squares. Notice that black still doesn't have half their pieces out. So yeah. And then the other move for black would be f6, keep my knight away. But that has its own issues, right? Like giving up this g6 square, I can maybe get my rook in before you finish development with bishop g6. Or I play h4 for more nasty battles, or I play h6 and get this lock of squares that keep you away from my passed h-pawn. So if you want to go king g7, knight g5, and knight f6, yeah, I've got this h6 trick here. I'm going to push you back anyway. There's just too much little tricks from white. You have to be a little more scared of this, I think.
Thinking more about it, David, like I just realized too, this could become an epic French course because what do we know? Gukesh will play something. What I was saying, the exchange French kind of sad, but actually, what's going to happen is he'll play a different attack against. He could play a different attack against the French every single game, and he can go back to d4 too.
Okay, I think this bishop g5 line looks very good for white. By the way, personally.
Oh, okay. Start me from the top, and then tell me what you're thinking here.
So Asher was kind of defending black's honor here after g5. Bishop takes g5. H takes g, g takes h.
Okay, yeah.
And well, for example, Jesse, we had king g7, knight takes g5, knight to f6, h6 check, and white's winning.
Why did you play king g7 though?
But he wanted to get near the pawn because I warned him that if I get the pawn to h6 at some point, then with the bishop on c2, he can't really approach the passed pawn.
Okay.
So he was
Let me
trying to deal
let me
with
just say, David. Okay, after this g4, one reason I don't want to play g5 before we get deep in the weeds is white is up in time. That's his advantage. And when you play g5, you're creating a storm.
Yes.
But you're not ready for the storm.
Yes. That's what I was telling chat while you were probably thinking about some other things. But there's the bishop on c8, rook on a8, knight on d7 is almost there. And suddenly we've got all this fighting going on, right? So I said if black played f6 to keep the knight at bay, white can consider h4. You know, fighting, white can consider bishop e8, which forces the rook, bishop g6, which forces the rook to e8. If black plays g4, white's got options of knight e5 or knight h4 to f5. So it seems to me there's a lot of juice for white. And I think black would probably play knight f4 against g4, like you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think actually I would, if Gukesh gathers his coconuts and plays knight f4, which, I mean, g4, which I don't feel great about it either. Then I bet Ding will just play knight f4.
He's done something. He's played g4, Jesse, just now.
Oh, here we go, boss.
10 minutes of double checking it.
10 minutes.
He was not confident in this thing, but he's done it. Oh, I just saw the moment of him playing it on the replay.
Oh, I'm going to look at it too. Here.
He's trying to look calm. He does kind of look calm.
He always looks calm. Well, he has little things that...
Ding just immediately looks up at him like, are you sure, boss? Like, I just need to know how confident you are about this. I feel like you're not confident. Okay, good.
He is giving him some looks, dude. He is giving him some looks. Oh, that's funny, man. Wow.
Yeah.
They're both so controlled in their facial expressions, but yeah, there's little tells.
Yeah.
It's funny. Ding never looks at anybody with aggression, you know? His chess can be very aggressive.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't think he's got any hate for his opponents in his heart. He doesn't look like he's boiling over. I think knight f4 is right, Jesse. But we haven't looked at all at knight hf6. Should we glance at that move or no?
Well, we could, but I have a feeling it's just going to be knight f4. After knight f6, h3, well, white's got a little something. You know, it's not the end of the world for black, but it's got a little something.
So white's going to play bishop g3 and fg here, right? And even though it messes our structure a bit, it gives us some dark squares. Is that what you anticipate, approximately?
Yeah. I think also maybe Ding just didn't believe in g4, kind of like me. Because he's looking and he's like, really, boss? And he doesn't, you know, and your opponent, oh, he's really looking up at him. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So, and, oh, he's really looking at him.
Yeah, he wants to know, to what extent is this evil or just sort of desperation? Like you're just trying to make it interesting or, yeah. He needs to know, how serious do I need to take this?
Well, okay, so it's funny because I think earlier on when I first got here, you mentioned G4 as one of the ideas, and I was like, no, I'm not. I didn't want to look at it. Right. And I think that's exactly what I said.
But that's your reaction every time I suggest a move.
No, but G4 especially, and I think that's how Ding also saw it. So now he wasn't even. I don't think that was even on his radar really, G4, and now only now is he thinking.
I think it was, and that's why he's checking Gukesh on the conference and stuff. Because I think when Gukesh was hesitating after Rook E1, he's like, okay, so the guy's really thinking about something like G4, something that you would hesitate about.
Yeah. Wow, he's looking at him every 5 seconds, man.
Yeah.
Whoa, he's just looking up at him, man. Dang. And Gukesh is just looking at the board I'm a little ashamed. I'm a little ashamed, but I was told by my team I need to mix it up, so here we go.
He's like, I hope my dad isn't watching. No, I know my dad is watching.
I hope Anand isn't watching.
Yeah. As Asher points out, Jesse, this is Gukesh's third white where he's played G4 within the first, 20 moves within the
Oh yeah, that's true. It was also
Opening to
the
middle game, every single game.
actually I want to say about that game was really interesting is that to my eyes there were just some moves that had some discoordination game one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also some moves that I was like, really, boss? And then Magnus put out this vid. I'm sure maybe you've seen it, where
Yeah,
he's just like every move was
I
terrible.
agree with that take. I haven't watched Magnus's video, but I agree.
It was so bad.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah. Now, if KGB could see G4, I like, yeah, if I was playing and I knew KGB was watching somewhere, I'd also have my head down and be like, fuck little shit of this one, man. He's gonna nail me here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. After that first game, people were talking like, "Oh, Ding is back, Ding is back," and I was like, Jesse found all of Ding's moves. Gukesh just played like a total chump. You know, like the quality of that first game was like me white against you black. That's what I told people at the start of game two while you were sleeping.
Mm.
I was like, that's what it would look like when a chump IM loses to a chump GM. That's what that game was.
Yeah. Oh, he's looking at him, dude. Dang. I wonder, like the will to win is a really interesting thing. And when you don't have a lot of aggression in your body, then, but I was thinking about it, like maybe Ding is finding his way into the match, you know, like, like when we think about the predictions, I think it's like if Gukesh, if you just reverse the order in which somebody won the first game, if Gukesh had won first,
Mm-hmm.
won that first game, Ding could have collapsed immediately. And then now it's kind of like Ding has got a chance to find his way back in
Right.
emotionally.
Whereas Gukesh seems really, really mature and balanced emotionally for a kid.
Oh yeah,
Like
dude.
he was like totally like, yeah, I thought I might play badly in the first game. So be it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, dude, let me tell you a story that has a little bit to do with it. So, I got to St. Louis this summer, U.S. Senior Championships, and there's all this hoopla, and they're doing interviews, and they send us to this house to get interviewed. And ahead of me is Larry Christensen. So I'm sitting there waiting to get interviewed like a good boy, and
Mm-hmm.
Larry's talking in the next room. And they're asking him all these chump questions. And so they're like, Larry, how do you get motivated for a game? And then he gets kind of quiet for a second. He says, well, I think back, maybe something nasty the man said to me once, you know? Then I start boiling over, get real angry.
Portnoy method.
I was like, damn, son, you're gonna be doing that to me, man.
Yeah.
Angry? I don't want you angry.
Yeah. Well,
And
fair.
so yeah, I was like, oh shit, this is I thought that was just something we tell the media or something. No, that was a real thing. He's
No.
getting angry with
There's
him.
there's different people, Jesse, right? Different approaches. There's people like that. I
Well,
guarantee you that's not what Ding does before the game.
I don't think it is, man.
He doesn't be like, oh, that one time Gukesh said something in an interview that was like
Yeah.
maybe not 100% polite, you know. But yeah, there's certainly people like that. And Larry's chess looks like that. But the funny thing is, it doesn't necessarily match the chess, right? Like, you'll get somebody who plays like attacking chess who might be very mild
Well, right, like you do.
outside
I
of
feel
that.
like you are a very mild dude, but you play pretty. You want to play G4 all the time in F5. You just want to throw it out there, buddy.
I'm not like the mildest.
You're pretty mild, dude.
When
Even
I
though
was
you,
younger, I was kind of competitive. I wanted to smash people and stuff, and
yeah.
I played better against people I didn't like and worse against people I liked, and now it's sort of reversed itself. So now I'm milder.
Okay, okay. Now that we've gotten over this excitement, let's
Yeah.
start analyzing knight f4. So
Mm-hmm.
knight f4, bishop g3, and my claim is that next move I want to play knight e5 and claim that I have something.
Right. So, oh, move's been played, by the way, dog. Knight f4. Yeah,
Yeah,
reasonable.
I would say too, it's a little bit of hesitation from Ding there that's interesting because I think knight f4 is, well, he's just checking the variations.
No,
He's
come on.
just
I mean, Gukesh spent like 40 minutes on this idea, and he spent like 5 minutes. That's reasonable. He had to spend a few
well,
minutes.
but to me, knight f4 is just like the natural move. You know what I'm saying? It just seems right.
Sure. I mean, I would say, 4 or 5 minutes, whatever, was pretty fast. Reasonable. Shows he didn't look too hard for the other stuff. But Ding doesn't only look at intuitive moves, right? I mean, he tries to calculate some breadth of options.
Yeah.
And especially you play something funky like G4, there could be something wrong with it, right? And it could be the obvious knight F4. But there could be something else even more wrong with it, right? It's
Yeah.
possible.
So, Gukesh is away from the board, by the way, which is why we like
That's,
if he
that's what he
has a
spent all that time checking. Like, when are you going to go to the bathroom? Are you almost ready to go to the bathroom?
I'm really enjoying these streams, by the way. This, even though I'm going to give it dark 30, this is really enjoyable.
Oh, yeah. Sick as I am, I missed it when there wasn't one, and all day long, I was so sick this past day, Jesse. Oh, my God. And the whole day, my partner was like, you're not going to get up in the middle of the night again. You're not going to do it. And I was like, I know I am going to do it, but, like, I'm not going to say it. But, like... But for sure,
Costa
for sure.
didn't even say anything. He wasn't like, I'm out. He's just like, I'm a millennial billionaire of time, and I can't, dude. I need my beauty
I
sleep.
think after yesterday, it was assumed that it's just too painful. It's too painful.
Yeah. So I'm just checking. He's still away from the board. If
Yeah.
if it were the case that Gukesh would take a while on this move, then it would be weird. But he's not actually taking a while. He's just away from the board.
What if after bishop g3, he played knight f6 and said, I'm just going to take your pawn right away? We had knight e5 there, right? As a thought.
Yeah. Also, David, I don't really like it, but we're just going to mention that g5 could also be a thought here.
For white?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so he's back at the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're basically white is pushing his luck by giving black this beautiful f4 square. And we have bishop g3 would be the most natural, and that's what we get. Good. So,
that was fast.
well, I mean, I feel like knight f4 was the main move when you played g4, so yeah. Now, amazingly, even though he thought that long, Gukesh is still up on the clock. Knight b6 played fairly quickly. Okay. So, here we go. Now, to stress how hard this move g4 was, we just want to say there are so many different options for black. And he plays knight b6 pretty quickly. And knight e5, I think, is what we really want to play. In fact, as far as I can tell, David, knight e5 is the only move that doesn't immediately hang a coconut. Is that true?
Does knight e5 not hang the coconut? Black always has knight h3 check, and then bishop takes g4 defending the knight.
No, maybe even that hangs the coconut.
Yeah.
And we're just going to say bishop takes f4 is not what we want. Okay. Okay, Gukesh, you better show us something now, son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's bishop f5, which is pretty trashy.
Okay, let's just say if he can avoid losing the pawn somehow, then the knight on b6 is at least not the best thing we've ever seen.
Not terrible either, though. Let's bear in mind. Like, it's defending the d pawn, and it can hop to a4 in a lot of scenarios, right? So it's not ideal, but it's not too bad.
Okay, one completely wacky idea
Yeah.
is G5.
Okay.
It's very wacky. And first of all, black does not have to win the pawn. But my point would be that if he goes knight h3, king g2, he has to take on g3, and that's arguably some kind of concession.
Mm-hmm. But then he goes knight g5 and he's up a pawn, right?
I know. I'm just saying, what am I saying? I don't know.
Yep. I was thinking something really similar, Jesse. I was thinking of this trashy looking move, h3. And it's very similar, right? Knight h3, king h2, bishop g3, king g3, knight g5. Knight takes, pawn takes, and then I couldn't find it.
Oh, I have a lot of that h3. That's at least a good idea, David.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem is, like, okay, I've got rook h1, king g8, bishop h7 with a draw. But knight f3, f6 isn't really going anywhere. So same with rook e5, f6.
But the nice thing is rook h1 is a default move, so I found a draw for white, which is kind of comforting.
Yeah. Chat, here's the draw. You just check and then come back. Black can't let you play rook h8 in this scenario, really. Well, actually, maybe they just play bishop e6. Aye, aye, aye. The knight on b6 does its job again.
That was a cool idea, David, but unfortunately, I can't make it work either.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait a second. Maybe can you go back to where you played knight g5?
Yeah.
How about I play knight e5 there?
Okay. So try and keep some more tension. You've got the g6 square still.
Yeah. I could make an argument for compensation
They could
here.
try, but I think I'm going to just slaughter white here with some direct move. I hope to just behead the beast. Knight e6, f4, g5. This is insane. I don't have the power to do this.
Right. So let's just say
F5,
before we get deep
F4,
that
F6.
if you went into this variation,
Yeah.
like as white or black, you could. The issue is like because black is down in development, that's why we can hope that it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
And David, by the way, is always in our variations. He's always trying to do the friskiest thing. And Thing is not interested in the friskiest thing.
Maybe rook h1 here. And if king g7, it's friskier. Now we play f6. Get in on h6 with check. And then target f7, bishop e6. Next knight comes. Rook gets to g8 in time. Knight
Dude,
g5.
if he plays, he might play h3. That would, and then you win, David. You win the battle of the internet if you found h3 because that's some highfalutin stuff, dude. Boom. So remember when we talked about the dynamics 3 million years ago? Our king was worse than black's king, but lo, we've given up a pawn, and yeah, we got a little something going on.
I tried out one very long variation there, chat, and I would say that variation was pretty plausible for white.
Let me try to improve on it, David.
Okay.
So instead of knight e5, let's try knight h4.
Ooh. Now you're getting really sneaky.
I don't know if this does anything, but I'm just making it a little difficult for you to get out.
Okay, I'm gonna play a real limp move, bishop d7. Just trying to get out.
I think your knight e6 might also be fine, but
Yeah,
anyways, let's keep going. So f4.
Now I play it. Knight e6.
And now white has kind of a big choice. I have knight f5. Knight f3. And
Yeah.
I don't want to play f5 anymore.
Yeah, f5 doesn't go well with the knight on h4, does it?
So let's just play knight df3.
Yeah. Rook to e8. Oh, I got something good for you here, Jesse. Knight e5.
He played g5.
Okay. Knight e5, bishop c8, knight takes f7, I think. Wins for white. Or is very strong.
Good. No, I thought that was an interesting. Dude, you're h3. I thought it was an interesting move. And as we were talking about it, g5 has some similarities to this in that if black now plays knight h3, king g2, he's going to liberate our king, basically,
Yeah.
by allowing us to recapture with the bishop. Now, David's variation at first seemed better than this to me.
Mm-hmm.
For one, because black doesn't have to play knight h3 here.
Right.
Like, if you just look at the position, let's just say black plays bishop e6.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we think that black has problems?
Because white trades on
And then
h6
and then knight e5,
and
I
then knight
guess.
e5.
Yeah, okay, good.
And you
So
say like knight on b6 is not that good. Rook on e1 is one step ahead of the rook on a8. You know, it's not like a ton, but you got to pay me a tempo for the knight on f4 and so forth.
okay, good. So what we're going to claim with g5 is that first of all, the immediate knight e5 was no bueno because of snip on e5, knight h3 check, and then bishop g4. Right? So that was the first thing. So g5, this g5 is trying to get out of that mess. And then, well, we can see why he was, I mean, he was probably, by the way, not only did black have knight b6 on move 18, he had other moves, but then, he had to calculate all of this stuff out. So, all right, g5 happens.
Mm-hmm.
Knight h3 check. Let's go to the main, what we're going to call the main line. King g2. Bishop takes g3, looks forced.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's just pause for a second to see if we can find some ideas here. One thing David mentioned a little bit ago is the knight on b6 controls a8. And it actually might be a thing if our rook has dreams on the h file, those dreams involve checking on h8 and winning the rook on a8. But rook is protected by the stupid knight.
Yeah. Folks, our eval bar is still pending, like deciding whether he's got compensation for this pawn because
right.
it's not at all clear.
In David's by the way, in David's h3 variation, I was beginning to think like, oh, maybe there is compensation there.
Yeah, I was starting to
here I'm not sure yet. So David's automatically played hg. I was toying with other ideas. I don't understand what those ideas really are. Now, after hg, David instantly played knight g5, but hg5, as far as I could tell, is also eminently playable.
Interesting.
Which, if I'm trying to calculate this as white, the fact that he's got two options makes me even scarier.
Yeah, by the way, he didn't take the pawn. He played hg. And I was also thinking this was possible, Jesse, but I was prioritizing, the variation where he wins a pawn, right? The idea here, I think, is just to trade knights on h3. No, that's not possible because bishop d6 hangs. Well, it's not good.
You could play. So wait, let's just talk about this here, buddy. Mm-hmm. Basically, h takes g5 says, Gukesh, I trust you, and I'm not going to take no pawn. But we didn't really figure it out.
Did not see it. I mean, we would have needed another 20, 30 minutes to try and get to what Ding was looking at. Merles is convinced knight h3 was just bad. Wow. How?
Okay, so bishop takes.
Oh my God! Here's a suggestion from chat, Jesse.
Okay.
perhaps perhaps a silicon assisted chat.
Uh-huh.
But knight h3, king g2, bishop takes g3, g takes h6. Smack.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, there, whoever said it, they're genius. I don't, maybe it's too early in the morning for me, but I wasn't thinking about it. Thank you very much, whoever said that. And
Yeah.
then all you have to do is see it, and then you're like, yep, that was it.
Yeah.
And because then white is definitely a touch better.
So that's how Ding
Okay,
was able to decide this quickly.
good. Okay, so G5 exclam.
Yeah.
Uh, H takes, knight takes. Maybe white has a little something, something.
Um,
So just to be clear, the reason we might have a little something, something is because the knight on B6 is a little funky.
okay, so white has a threat here, Jesse. It's mate in 2. Knight
Yeah.
h7. I mean, every black move avoids it, basically, but let's just show this real quick, folks, so you can understand uh, just the concept that white might have something, right? That black might have some questions to solve, right? White is threatening to really get into some squares in black's position because bishop c8 and rook a8 are on the back rank. So black needs to prioritize getting those pieces out. Let's look at the most straightforward move first, Jesse, just because it'll be easier. That's what I do when I'm playing a game. You know, if there's a variation that's really simple, I try to evaluate it first. So knight h3 check.
By the way, let me say, to me, there's two other moves that are also really straightforward.
Yeah.
And that's F6 and bishop D7.
F6 and bishop d7. Okay, I'm with you.
Okay.
I hear you. Yeah, very basic moves as well. So okay.
Wait. Just real quick, David.
Yeah.
On F6,
Yeah.
white could play bishop F4, bishop
Yep.
F4, bishop G6.
Yep. I know. But then when black moves this
Bishop, maybe bishop D7, we still don't have
d7,
it.
you still have 2 knights hanging. And I had looked at knight e6, bishop e6, rook e6, right, getting all the light squares. But there's bishop d2 at the end.
Yeah. I have another idea at the end of that, but let's save that for a second. So,
right.
Bishop D7, knight H3. By the way, they all look kind of okay. David, for me, I don't want to play knight H3 because then I have to trade my bishop on D6.
Yeah.
Bishop D7 play.
He's going to play bishop D7 probably, right? Like in the first game.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
I just thought, you know, we could trade 2 pieces and get an evaluation quickly.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Big moment for our boy. Black seems by the way, we were asking about evaluation. I'm still kind of at zeros. For a second I thought black would be better after G4, but obviously it was kind of concrete.
White's ruined his own structure. But
let me just say something about the structure is that if the knight ever moves from F4, he has to fix our structure. So that's always kind of that is part of the tension about whether we have a bad structure.
I'm going minus 0.1, Jesse. I feel like the structure is kind of forever here. And we're not gonna really touch Ding's coconuts here. He's got no weaknesses and every piece developed, you know. And especially, I mean, this F6 move is kind of going to shut me down. I want to play knight D to F3 here, but then I don't know what I'm doing after F6.
Okay, so let's say the candidates for white here are knight F3 or knight F1. And as we've said like 1,000 times already, it's the story of this knight on D2. By the way, another thing the bishop D7 introduces is a simple knight A4 at some point.
Yep.
And, you know, actually, one thing that people were pointing out is like world championships where somebody won by just defense. And so I think Kramnik Kasparov came to mind, 2000. But this one could also, we could start talking about it that way because white is the one doing flailing tricks and black is just playing solid moves.
Mm-hmm.
And white now, for example, in this position, I think has to prove something.
Yeah.
Like we got a tempo or two and we need to do something with it or we will be a little worse.
Yeah. For example, here's just a super basic line, folks, that I looked at before changing my evaluation. Knight f3, f6. Knight on g5 is looking pretty stuck, so I trade on f4 to get the e6 square. Black takes, I take, and black plays super basic rook e8. Okay, so if you look at this, it's just an opposite colored bishop ending where you've got split pawns and black's dark square bishop is, ready to come to c1 at some point. And, your knight on f3 is dominated and you're just flailing.
Okay, he played knight gf3, which is not, doesn't feel like an inspirational, motivational speech, if you know what I mean.
Right. Okay. But what he is saying is the piece isn't trapped. And if you play f6, he can play knight h4 and actually make use of those squares. And if you don't play f6, he can go knight e5. And again, be ready to answer f6 with, knight g6, bishop f4, that kind of stuff. So,
okay, I'm gonna change my eval.
Yeah.
I'm gonna also go down a little bit here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go even a little bit further than I was at. I think a typical ding kind of move would be rook e8. Very, very calm, and let white maybe continue self-destructing if they really want to do something exciting.
Knight gf3 really feels like it didn't go anywhere, boss. And now I'm gonna try to hold it together.
Yeah, which is,
by the way,
an important switch to make when things aren't working out, right?
But also we gotta say, like, game one, he just completely failed to try to hold it together after the milk went bad.
Yeah.
Complete fail.
Yeah. Rushed headlong into everything that could go wrong.
Yeah, so black seems like they have several good moves. I do think f6 is totally playable. And rook e8 is definitely, let's call it the most natural. On rook e8, you do want to calculate knight e5.
Yeah.
It's an interesting argument. Is black even being put? Maybe black's being asked some questions here. It's a little hard for me to imagine. So,
How about
okay,
black
so
trades? If you go to e5.
right. Okay, we could try that out.
I don't know if you want to trade rooks or not.
No, let's stay with the pawn first.
And then I play this interesting move, knight d3.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's say I take that thing.
So suddenly I'm switching around and I'm trying to play as if the bishop on g3 is bad. After so long, we were trying to, keep the dark squared bishops for both sides.
Yeah, it's an interesting position. I mean, white could still play b3 there and claim he's maybe white might be a little better here. You at least have to be careful here as black.
Rook c8.
Rook c1.
I was waiting for b3. Rook c1.
And then here, you guys, the opposite color bishops, I do feel kind of drawish here, but white now has at least the idea of putting his king like on e3 or d4.
All right, I keep just gunning forward here. I play d4, just trying it out. playing like an engine, very tactical stuff here. You play c4 probably, right?
Okay.
Then I go knight d5.
Okay, see, David's wiggling.
Yeah.
Wiggling.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm trying to really bother white as black, honestly. Like,
Okay. I'll play rook takes e5 then on move 23 just to see if that's something I should have done.
so you were a little uncomfortable there.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm doing the same business without the rooks. Going to d3.
But let's just say something real clear. Black at that point can do a variety of things. Like David's going to take us down a little hole here, which is fine. But Black can do a variety of things, and we just got to say he's fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
So b3, snip, snop. I think b3 is probably reasonable. And this is just a dead position. It's completely dead.
Yeah.
I don't know if knight d3 is the most accurate, but there's nothing going on here.
Yeah.
And honestly, if Gukesh can get to a completely drawn position,
maybe you should.
Not so bad. You can fight again tomorrow, my friend.
Yeah.
You can fight again tomorrow. Maybe bad for the fans. Maybe your opening didn't work out, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But if you play G4 and don't lose, that's maybe a good thing.
I had thought I might have something here for black, but white has just f3, and then the king comes to e3. And nothing really going on, as Jesse says. Pretty dead. Why is black slightly better? At the moment, Drunken Plock, white is the one who has to prove something because they've got this isolated h-pawn, which is just slightly bad. On top of that, black's got some space on the queen side, and they've got this idea like knight a4. I think you need to be more precise as white here than as black to try and keep things going.
And then knight on f4 is a good piece. I think we have a move.
Rook e8.
I thought f6 might have been playable, and maybe that was the most ambitious. And I think we just looked probably at the game continuation now with knight e5, bishop e5, rook
But
e5.
after f6, knight h4, what do you do?
Well, I was going to decide not to resign immediately.
Well, yeah, of course.
And I was going to play rook e8.
Rook e8. Okay. That's pretty reasonable. I need some tension. I need some fire.
Anyways, this is also, if white wants equality here, I think he can get equality. So
yeah, easily. I mean, I could play knight g6, bishop d6, check, right? I'm golden here.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I was thinking maybe rook e3, keep playing a little.
So rook e8. Let's stay with the game.
Yeah, rook e8. And it looks pretty equal. Okay, but the move I was thinking of in that f6 position, maybe he could play here, Jesse, which would be rook e3. No, he's just played knight e5. Okay. Good enough.
Oh, we called that one.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to go back to minus 0.1 because I think, even though visually black's better, I think if we go straight into this opposite colored bishop position, bishop e5, rook e5, I think, it's getting pretty symbolic for black very quickly here.
He took very quickly.
Yeah. Let me look at their faces. Let me see if they've got the we know it's a draw face on. I mean, Gukesh never does. He just always keeps playing like it's a deep position.
Yeah.
But I do feel, me personally, I feel the shadow of the draw, the irresistible pull. He keeps rooks on the board, Jesse. What?
Oh, and knight d3 played instantly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about this for a moment, Tito.
Well, at least I was right about knight d3. Hello. With the rooks on, isn't there a little risk for white? Why did he not trade rooks?
I'm surprised too that he played DE5 so quickly.
Maybe he's gonna play rook e3.
But I don't know what rook e3 does because bishop f5
Right.
I hold my coconut easily.
Yeah, bishop f5. Yeah, what's he gonna do? What's going on? Jesse, I shouldn't have looked, but I see the chat in the stream where
Uh-huh.
people are just watching them thinking, and like
Uh-huh.
side by side, it's like blunder by Ding, Ding is winning, blunder by Gukesh, Gukesh is winning. It's just
Uh-huh.
like this complete. At least they're not using engines, right? If they all think the opposite thing at the same time.
Well, also, they are watching the stream we're watching where there is no engine,
Yeah,
and then there's one you can watch with the engine. So these
yeah,
people are kind of like our spiritual cousins over here.
yeah. They just want to see the purity of the board and the faces. I like that.
Well, David, show us your variation again, the one we've sparred out, because
Okay.
that one is the basic, let's call that the basic problem for white.
Yeah, I mean,
So
okay.
bishop takes, pawn takes. So
Right.
b3 would be a nice move to stop the knight.
Right. So in this position, folks, white might be worried about knight a4 or knight c4. Right. So
Exactly
that's
right.
why Jesse just sort of blitzed out b3 here the first time around. Then I
Hmm.
blitzed out rook c8 because the c pawn was hanging, and I wanted to make something happen,
Right.
which is sort of like the first thing I look at in most positions. Jesse's right about that. Then I played d4. And what I'm trying to do is Jesse just hurt my knight with b3. He hurt her bad. And I'm trying to get her back into the game. So I'm playing d4 partly to just be a fancy pants, but partly to get this knight into d5 and back into the game.
I got an idea. I got a gross idea for white.
Yeah.
So after rook c8, let me play the disgusting knight b1.
Okay. So you're saying my knight sucks, but yours does too.
I'm also, the knight is saying, hey, I'm controlling, your knight's getting controlled, your rook's getting controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the dream, as discussed earlier, of putting the king on e3, which in itself, even if I got that, wouldn't be the end of the world for you or anything.
Right.
But, it would be a little improvement.
All right. I'll play bishop f5.
Okay. I think also d2 is a move there.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop f5. Let's play f4. I might regret f4.
Wow. F4 seems like the kind of move one regrets. um, d2?
You want to play d2 now?
Well, yeah.
So one thing actually about it, if white, we're going to look, I guess, at this because it does look dangerous for white. But if I want to, I can play rook d1 to be a real weenie first.
Oh, yeah. Faux show.
And interestingly, you can still play d2 there, David. When
Yeah.
I play rook d1, you can still play d2 because
Yeah.
I can't play rook d2.
Yeah. I was probably going to. Well, I mean, we can say that black's better here, right? I mean, just
Okay, let me just see if I come up with a better move besides
just compare the bishops, right? It's rough.
besides f4. Well, okay, let's just say the obvious. The only reason to think white is mild in the game is because the knight on b6 is funky.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so instead of f4, I'll play rook d1.
You'll play rook d1 first. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll play d2 anyway.
Knight d2.
Yeah, rook takes the pound.
Okay, but now after knight f1, maybe I'm a little better.
Knight f1. Maybe he's a little better. He probably didn't see our bishop was coming to e4.
Well, my knight's coming to e3, and your knight's still 4 is the deal.
Okay, I go bishop g4.
Interesting. Well, I'm either going to play rook d2 or rook d4. I don't know.
Yep. Either way, I'm going to play bishop h3. Actually, maybe I'll go to f3. Either way, I'll be better. Oh, you don't want any of this, dog.
No, I'm fine. I'll go rook d4.
Rook d4. Okay. Bishop f3.
If your knight were playing, I might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Rook f.
Rook f4.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe he's touching my coconuts a little bit.
Okay. You want to play rook f4?
I know. I'm thinking about it.
Okay. Not yet. Okay.
Bishop f4.
Bishop. I was hoping you would play rook f4, Jesse. I was going to play d4. Sack the pawn. Get my piece out.
Okay, so wait, let's just recap here and say the obvious. So in this position, knight d3, it was played instantly.
Yeah.
And one way in which maybe you could rationalize Gukesh taking immediately with the pawn on e5 would be to say, well, if I'm going to play this position for a win or something, then I got to keep the rooks on, just on principle. But then after knight d3, there's actually some concrete problems that dude is facing now.
Yeah. I think that d5 was a massive blunder. And while we were talking here, I put the eval bar down quite a bit. But, you know, going out on a limb, right? I could be very wrong. Sometimes I'm very conservative about waiting to really understand the position before I move my eval, but...
Let me just say, I believe in this. I believe that that white is totally fine. So let me try again. b3.
b3.
Rook c8.
Rook c8.
Knight b1.
Knight b1.
Maybe you should throw d2 in now, by the way.
Yeah, who knows?
Your call.
I also have bishop g4, which looks very strong. But you want me to try a different move? I mean, I got
whatever you think is best. I'm gonna just try to say that white can hold this.
All right, I'll just play bishop f5 again. It was fine.
All right, so I'm gonna play bishop f4 now.
Bishop f4 now. Oh, now you're stopping me. Now he's stopping me. Nice. So you're just dealing with your main problem first, right?
Yeah, and then I'll play f3 and king f2 and that stuff.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So maybe you should consider d2 immediately?
Let me think a second here. Yeah, maybe I should.
There's arguments to say that white really shouldn't be worried at all here. So I'm gonna change mine to 0, I think, because I don't think the immediate d2 is gonna bring it.
Okay. He's gonna hide over there. Okay.
Now this is not to say, by the way, that knight d3 was bad.
Right.
Just that white, we think, I'm beginning to think that white should just be able to hold this comfortably.
Sorry, that's just me missing.
I think Gukesh didn't see this coming, though. He's tanking forever on knight d3.
Yeah.
So now he's calculating for the first time all this stuff that we're doing on
as if he didn't even look at knight d3 or something. I don't know. Weird. It's very weird to me. Yeah, I've been thinking about rook c6, Isaiah, but it wasn't working against f3, king f2. I mean, not working in the sense of not doing anything special. It wasn't, like, bad either.
By the way, Dave, there's no alternative after knight d3, right? I got to take that thing.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I didn't look at anything. It looked like there was nothing, yeah. Knight d3, your rook's hanging, pawn's hanging. I mean,
Oh, okay. One crazy thought would be,
mhm,
I don't like this too much, but if you really felt you were dying in
mhm.
that other variation, the variation we're looking at, you could play Rook B1, Knight E5, then Rook E1. That would be sadness beyond sadness. But
You're just waking up your bishop to help you draw.
I'm waking up my bishop to help me draw. Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, let's go back to our main thing. So David still believes in black. Let's give him a try. So we're going to look at the position after 25 B3.
Yeah. B3. Yeah, I like rook c8. I mean, knight d2 can't. Knight b1 can't be a problem. I mean, it could be the best defense, but I mean, that's not a reason not to play rook c8. And now. Oh, my stupid knight is killing me. Okay.
Right. So let's stress, you guys. The only reason white might live through this madness is the knight on B6 is poor.
Okay, I'm playing risky moves, Jesse. I go a5.
A5.
Yeah. Yeah. Bruce lost his mind again.
So if I play A4, what do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't honestly, you playing A4 doesn't scare me that much. But
Again, I mean, my idea was to go AB, rook A8, and get a file to support the pawn. I mean, I didn't think it was going to crush you. I just thought it was a little something to do.
okay, I think it's dangerous because you're putting that pawn on a dark square. So,
I know. I said I was being risky.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm weakening your B3 square this way as well, so that's the point. So I go bishop G4, like before.
Right.
Against rook E3, Sudarshana, black's knight isn't going to stay on D3. It's going to capture the pawn on B2. Going to slip away.
All right, so I'm playing bishop F4.
Yeah, bishop F4. Now I hit you with the old D4.
I still don't know what he wants from me.
I want the D5 square for my knight.
C4, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that coming. Knight D7.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, we do have a move. I think
traded on D3, as he had to.
as he had to, right?
Okay, so now you see what I'm doing. I'm putting my knight on C5. You're going to put your knight on D2. I'm going to put my bishop on E2. And then I'm going to try to maneuver my rook to somewhere like B6 or G6, right? I'm going to come to C6 and try and harass white eventually.
I think David's getting a little too frisky here.
I'm
so
getting
rook
very frisky.
E4,
What do you do?
rook E4.
Rook E4. Oh, you want my pawn?
Well, if you they told me to put the rook behind the passed pawn,
All right.
so I
Knight
doing that.
C5.
Snip.
You snip. I think you've snipped one too many times, my friend. Knight E6.
Maybe I have. Maybe I snipped one too many times.
Knight E6. Oh, this is what a confluence of hanging pieces for white.
All right, rook E4. Oh, and then you got me with bishop.
Bishop F5.
Okay, you got me there.
Oh, it felt so good, Jesse.
You make it hurt so good.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the love don't feel like it should. You make it hurt so good.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get my knight into the game, folks, because it's really been
All right.
killing me
I'll
on
do
B6.
it. I'll do a take back. Rook E4 was too ambitious. We're gonna play bishop C1
Bishop C1.
because chess is basically an easy game.
Jesse's an expert at assuming the position, for anyone who doesn't know.
That's true.
World champ at assuming the position. Bishop E2. No, take that. Take that, you fiend.
What?
Oh, that hurts so good, too.
Okay, I wanted to play F4 anyway.
Okay. Oh, God, I taxed him in extra tempo. You don't know how happy I am. Knight C5.
Bishop A3.
What? That wasn't part of the plan?
That's why I played bishop C1, dog.
Okay, I thought you were trying to play knight D2, bishop B2 to pressure one of my D pawns. I was wrong.
Maybe I might go back to B2 someday. In
I was
fact,
very
maybe
wrong.
knight D2 is more flexible. Okay, we got to move.
Yeah.
Uh,
F3.
F3. Okay, so
He lets the knight do its deed on A4 or C4 rather than weakening the C file.
okay. So
Skibik
maybe
says
this.
that Gukesh's face does not look fine.
So F3 has a certain amount of sense. So first thing I want to say, David, is if you play knight C4, I think the very simple claim is I'll take you and then play bishop F4 and claim there's no way I'm going to lose that thing.
Yeah. I'm just
And
quickly
then
checking Gukesh's face.
I can't check his face, Mo.
Yeah, he looks a little like unhappy and worried a little bit.
I don't
I
know, worried. He might be unhappy. I get being unhappy. Okay, so I think though that in this position, knight C4 does nothing special for black, and that knight A4 is the big question.
Okay, so knight C4 trade, and then all you have to do is control the D2 square. It's a dark square. You got it.
Yeah.
So let's try knight A4, which is what we were the most terrified of. And what are you thinking, Jesse? Rook B1?
I think I got to go with the nasty. Yeah,
The
I got
nasty,
nasty.
the position.
And this is very scary. At some point, maybe now you're going to play F6, and then I think I have to do F4. It is not so pleasant for peasants.
I mean, you got to give black more than a 0 here, Jesse.
Oh no, I'm coming around.
Yeah.
But by the way, I think he played the wrong move. Unless, but by the way, let's just give him a chance. Let's give him a
Yeah,
chance.
yeah, of course. Of course, but I mean, Rook E5 looked fine, and this
I think
looks
my knight
unfine.
B1 thing looked fine too, if abject. If abject. Now, maybe he's got an idea on knight A4 though. Okay, here's maybe one thought, David.
If you check the temperature in the room, they're going to tell you, the chat is going to tell you that after knight B1, you were struggling.
Okay, but I think there's maybe an idea after knight A4.
Okay.
I'm not 100% yet, but let me just think about it. A thought could be that when you take on B2, then I play rook B1.
Mm-hmm.
So that still begs the question, what cool building move do I have here?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're going to see it. By the way, I think, yeah, we could be here for a while, my friends. We might be here for a while. So knight A4. There's all
Okay.
kinds of candidate moves here. So let me just mention some, like the basic bishop F4, king F2.
Mm-hmm.
C4 is the real hammer question.
C4?
Yeah.
Oof. It
Makes
looks
sense.
super wrong, but I see how actually it could flip things around weirdly.
I don't think you could actually flip things around, but
I
it
mean,
could.
white could get active. Like
Yeah.
to me, it seems wrong because you're opening up space, and black can get to the D pawn and support it more, right? But after DC4, knight C4, the white knight can come to D6, and that's what I mean by flipping it around, right? Like you're
Right.
doing stuff too.
My big question though is when I flip it around, that D2, that pawn, that pawn is no longer blockaded.
Yeah. Okay. Chad has a very basic question. What is this F3 move for? Lucky Fritter, we definitely don't want to know what David Howell is saying because he's just reading an engine,
Yeah.
is my understanding. So, like, when you tell us that, it spoils the whole thing for us, right? Who is right? I mean, obviously the computer engine, but that's not what we're here for. Yeah. It's okay. You probably didn't know, but if you're looking at other streams, they're probably mostly just reading out an engine printout.
Yeah, I definitely think that unless there's a conceptual idea for black after knight c4, d4, bishop f4. Yeah, but black needs some idea there to tell me that he's crushing me. And maybe there's some crazy f6 right then. Maybe.
King f2.
And then, yeah, even that I don't understand, right?
Maybe g5.
Maybe some crazy thing like that. Right?
Maybe g5.
Knight c4 was played, my friends.
Yeah.
So here's the bummer about this dude telling us this.
Yeah.
Is now.
Oh yeah.
But previously, my reaction would have been, "Well, that wasn't right."
Right.
And now I'm gonna be like, "Oh no, some computer has some idea."
Yeah. Unfortunately, our whole stream is ruined now. Maybe we'll pack it in and
okay.
Go do something else, because the folks can just go listen to David Howell reading computer readouts anyway on another channel.
Yeah. So let's just take for a second. Takes. And by the way, bishop f4 isn't the only move. I could play a simple king f2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, king f2 seems, I mean, bishop f4 is human and everything, but king f2 is probably the most sensible. And
I know Lucky Fritter, but I'm kind of extrapolating that whatever David Howell says is just what his computer told him.
Yeah.
You know? We have to switch Kostian for us who doesn't know. That's right, a lie.
Okay, let me just say, okay, look, I'm going to be looking for black's idea here, but let's put David has king f2 on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so our task is, let's try to find just an idea for black, whether we think there's some computer idea or not. Ding certainly has. By the way, Ding might not have an idea. He might just be like, knight c4, I know I'm not losing, you know, looks like a draw.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he knows he's better.
One way or another.
He's looking for something where he's better, probably.
Right. If I was black here, I would say I need an idea, or else it's just going to immediately peter into a draw.
Yeah.
So we get some moves. Knight takes, d takes.
Yeah. By the way, there was a very basic question in chat. What was the point of f3 from Gukesh? And the answer is so the white king can come to e3 and embrace the passed pawn.
And it's also very important that the pawn on f3 blocks the bishop from coming to g4. In general, we would like to put our pawns on the color of his bishop in the opposite color positions so that we control a little bit of light squares. Because, yes, we win the dark squares, but we would love to fight the little bit of fight that we can put up on the light squares we want to put up. Yeah, I'm not seeing it here for black. Okay, a move has been played. Rook e4. That's a frisky move.
Well, he wants to establish it on d4 behind the pawn, help control the pawn that way, and then if you ever, oppose rooks, he trades rooks, which makes it more drawish usually. He also asks you to pay a tempo for the c4 pawn, perhaps. The move makes sense, but I mean, king f2 was definitely the simplest.
Yeah, this makes me nervous for dude here.
Yeah.
Makes me nervous. So one idea here after rook e4 is bishop a4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ready to finish it. So that forces rook d4, I guess. And then what do you do?
By the way, you also have bishop f4.
Yeah, no. I don't believe that stuff.
But if you play rook d4, that gives me the option now of f6. And now I think I'm touching your business.
Touching my business. Fair enough. Do not really love having my business touched, so I'll play f4. On the theory that basically rook e2 would be one of the main ways for black to try and win this position. So we're going to try to forestall that as long as we can.
Okay, this position, now that we have this one on the board, this one I can say is clearly better for black
Well, yeah.
because the pawn on e5 is going to be a chump. My king can go to e6. My rook now has both the f and the h. Yeah, I got a lot of coconuts to start talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so rook e4, bishop a4. I'm not sure about this business here. David, let me just try bishop f4 because otherwise I just feel like f6 is going to crush me or I'm going to be much worse.
So you want bishop f4 after bishop a4.
Yeah.
Okay. So against rook d8, you're playing bishop d2.
Well, I can also play then rook d4. Also, I might be getting away with rook takes c4 there because that's why I thought bishop f4 was better, and I thought now black would play b5.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that white could hold it together here. One basic idea too, at any point is to play bishop c6 takes f3, and then you're going to put it on e2. That should be okay for us, though.
I mean, it's a little bit of a pain, but it's not a sure loss.
Okay, so let's look at candidate moves. So we're looking at rook e4, and Ding is thinking bishop a4 looks the most natural to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me just show your other idea was bishop c6, rook c4, bishop f3. Probably have to play rook d4 then, and then bishop e2. So this was another thing Jesse mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not a protected passer, and the king can come to e3. You still have to worry about it because it's close, but for the moment, white's okay.
Yeah.
If black's rook had an open file, it could be more dynamic.
Right, and let's say that's a key question for everybody here is like, can black's rook eventually find a way in? All right. Well, David, how about this? Let me try to defend black's honor, okay? And you try to defend your boy's honor. So bishop a4.
Sounds unpleasant. Okay. Bishop a4. I play rook d4. I know you wanted bishop f4, but...
Oh my God. So I think rook d4 is an example of a mistake because now you're helping me open lines for the rook.
Well, he's just played bishop c6, so it's already a moot point.
It's already a moot point. Okay, here we got bishop c6. Bishop c6, by the way, might be the move of a man who says this game is basically drawn and I'm just going to keep it nice and safe. Oh, he played rook d4.
Why would he keep it safe? He
played rook d4.
Well, rook c4, rook d8. What do you do? Other than resign.
Oh, no.
Crispy.
Uh-oh. Well, that was a basic miss on my part. So now... Oh, but here's a point. This is interesting. Bishop f3, king f2. Rook d4 is actually kind of clever. So bishop f3, king f2, and I will get the pawn. No, I will not. Bishop h5. I do not get the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's time to address the human eval bar. David's at negative 0.1. I'm not that far yet. I'm at negative 0.8.
Well, that's pretty close. It's right. It's right on the edge, Dronky Pluck, between a draw and a win for black. Right in that borderline right now.
Well, David, I'm going to say that I thought b3 was a must back then, and knight b1, that variation was much better than this crap. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. What are you doing, Gukesh? You know, and it's not like you got to be a genius to play, yeah. None of again, kind of like game one. Ding isn't needing to play genius moves here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very close to having blown this. Because look, this position without the F pawn, there's that F6 lever to get rook E2, right? I mean, ay. How do we keep that rook out, right?
Okay, let me try to defend white's honor then. So king E3 in this position.
Yeah. I think we spend a tempo on B5 as black.
Okay.
Yeah. Black can't realistically lose. Correct. It's 2 result. Impossible to lose for black. Impossible.
This looks god awful.
To my eyes, D takes E5 was like a huge blunder. I can't even begin to conceive of or explain it.
Didn't you like my explanation? I mean, because I've done this before, right? So you're playing a game, you feel like you need to try to win, and then it's a process of elimination thing because you say to yourself, well, if the rooks come off, I got no chance of winning. If I keep them on, maybe I got a chance, so I keep them on.
I mean, I've done that a million times, but to me, this was just completely implausible. Like, I'm so obviously worse. And I'm the king of losing positions because I wanted to keep winning chances where no one else would even try to keep winning chances because they know that you can't win. And I wouldn't have done this. Not in a million years.
Oh, by the way, I was yelling out the wrong code, everybody. So let me tell you guys the code.
Okay.
David, you got to fix your code, buddy. It's not WC2024. It's WC24. We've been blowing it.
I didn't do it.
Anyways.
I haven't blown anything. I told people it might be WC24.
But it says that on our Twitch stream.
It says it on our Twitch stream? Where?
On the title. It says no engine code WC2024.
Oh, the title is wrong. Well, I didn't set that part of the title. Somebody else did.
That's got to be that's Kostya's fault.
Yeah, come on.
Okay. So we'll fix that. Anyways, guys, let me just tell you this amazing thing. We have a 20% off World Championship sale, not a Black Friday sale. Why? Because David is not a communist. Excuse me, not a capitalist. Excuse me, Dave. He's not a capitalist, so we're not doing no Black Friday. This is a World Championship sale, only available through the World Championship. And 20% off the amazing Dojo, man.
It's more or less the same thing.
All right, David, what I'm going to need here, bud, is I'm going to need to get myself a cup of coffee. And then we're going to come back, and I'm going to try like hell to defend Gukesh's honor. Right now, it's looking highly unpleasant. Highly unpleasant. Yeah.
Some moves coming in, too. Bishop F3, King F2, Bishop C6.
Bishop C6, also another move. Weren't quite... Oh, Bishop C6 is a dirty drug, dude. Because what is Bishop C6 saying? It's saying, if Rook C4, D2, King E2, Bishop B5, welcome to the dojo. Wait a second.
Wait, but there's Rook D4, right?
Yeah, what happened there? Okay, wait. He's got a trick. What is this trick? Before
He surely got a trick because it looks like the C-pawn's hanging.
All right, so Rook takes C4. So on D2, we are not allowed to play King E2. But we play Rook D4, and we say thank you for the coconut. Okay, so that's not it. Is this a weird miss? Okay.
He's taking the pawn. Yeah. What on earth? I have to see their faces. I mean, are they just like blundering today?
The chat of this other thing is so dumb.
Gukesh calmly takes the pawn.
Yeah, it was very calm. I watched it.
Why did he do that? What is going on? Ding? Looking slightly grim. Checks Gukesh. It's interesting they check each other's that they check each other fairly often, even though both of them are pretty impassive. You know, they don't normally give much, but
Yeah, what is the El Intensione here?
I don't know. He played Rook D8 next, to which I think the answer is Rook D4. This might be done before you get your coffee, so let's just keep our eyes on
I
it.
really
Rook D4. I mean, you can get
but
your coffee, but they're trading the rooks.
well, what is he doing? Okay, it all came off.
I'm switching my evaluation to 0 because, you know, he hung his extra pawn as far as I can tell. I'm sorry to be such a human, but what on earth is going on? It just looks like straight blunders to me.
Wow.
There's no way this is winning, right, Jesse? I mean, the king comes to E3.
No, this is gone, dude.
Nothing.
Well, White could give up maybe even a pawn or two, and it would still be drawn.
Okay. This is super zeros. I'm going to change your evaluation for you. Just zeros. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna change it for you.
You can go fix it if you want to, if you disagree, but I think you're just slow to find the document. It's dead.
I think you're slow to find the document. Wait a second, David. Let's go back.
Okay.
Let's go back. So, Bishop C6, and I'm gonna refresh just to see how long he thought about that.
We can't explain why Rook C4 wasn't possible before Demonic Bag. In this position, after initially Bishop C6, if the rook took on C4, black had Rook D8. And then you've got no way to stop the pawn queening. Your king's too far away. If Rook D4, you get traded, and the time you recapture lets the pawn go through D2. If you go Bishop F4, D2, you have to sack the bishop. So after Bishop C6, White played Rook D4, and black took on F3. Now White's king gets closer with King F2. And we expected Bishop H5. After Bishop H5, you can't take on C4 because of D2. And the bishop's covering D1. It's all over.
Okay, David, let me just try to defend his honor back there for a second.
Bishop
So Bishop
C6
H5
takes.
Okay, so 29, Bishop H5, boss. Okay. Let me try Bishop F4.
Yeah. B5.
And then you probably want B5, right?
Yeah. I mean, F6 is a totally viable other move, but I think B5 is best.
And
yeah,
then
go for it, Blib Up. This is a
let me
very
try-
reasonable time for anybody who's in the middle of the night to go back to bed. Like Blib Up. This is a really good time to do so.
Okay, wait, David. Rook D5.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine if there was something concrete dude was worried about.
Rook D5.
So Rook D5.
Uh-huh. No, that's a fine move. Let's say I play A6. Blundering the E6 tactic for you. Big chance for you, Jesse. I blundered E6.
And then Rook D6.
Oh, man, he doesn't go for it.
I'm just trying to, okay, we both think Bishop H5 looks a lot better than Bishop C6. And I'm just trying to understand, are we missing something obvious?
No.
Come on, boss.
All right. Now
Come
I play G5 after your Rook D6 move.
Could we be missing something obvious? No.
No. No, sub us in. Sub us into the match, Jesse. We got this.
Oh, I might. Well, okay, I have an idea anyways.
Yeah.
So let me try again. So instead of Bishop F4 on move 30, let me try King E3.
The D3 pawn has been captured, by the way, Jesse, in the live position.
I know, boss. I know. It's the live position is no longer interesting.
Okay.
So King E3
On which move?
on move 30. So Bishop H5 and then King E3 directly.
Bishop H5, King E3. All right. So, guys, we're just doing post-game analysis here. We're essentially saying it's already a draw, this game, okay? Yeah. And we're just thinking about, was there anything back here? So after King E3, you're threatening my C-pawn probably, right?
Well, let's guess that, yeah.
So let's say I play B5.
Now, I was thinking for half a second that maybe rook h4, but you just played g6, and even though it's not the happiest thing to play g6, it's draw agreed.
It's not the end to play g6 either, right?
What a weird game, dude.
The end was shocking.
So one thing, David,
yeah.
that was interesting about our last game is I felt that last game was very rich. And I was reading Twitter, and somebody in Twitter was like, it was nearly a perfect game. The engine thought all moves were absolutely correct. And I was like, wow, what a different view of what happened there in round 4, you know?
Round 4? That was yesterday.
This one, it feels like there were some legitimately bad moves here.
I mean, 2 that stand out to me only, right?
Well, I think G4 looked funny, first of all. Okay,
Sure.
I think G4 looked funny. And then I felt that, obviously, we agree that DE5 was horrendous.
Yeah.
And then also, though, F3 on move 25, unless we're missing something here, because this is kind of like the result of that position. Unless we're missing something here, then F3 looked terrible too. Huh.
Yeah. I don't know. Did not, yeah. The denouement looked pretty bad here. Oof. Jesse.
Yeah.
Is the next rest day Sunday?
Well, it goes. No, tomorrow we play, dude.
Right, tomorrow is.
And then Monday is the rest day. It's always 3 days off,
Okay,
1 day off.
Monday's a rest day. Perfect.
3 days on, 1 day off.
Perfect. So here's what we should do, Jesse.
Okay.
We should do a special episode of Endgame Sensei, where we play out just endgames from the match, like this thing here.
That's a thought. On Monday, you want to do that?
Yeah, on the rest day, we do Endgame Sensei.
But just imagine, David, I'm sure there are things you are putting off in your life right now.
Yeah.
And Monday would be kind of the day to do those things.
Yeah.
That you were putting off. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
does that mean that you have no time on Monday?
Let's talk about it tomorrow.
We just need an hour, dog. Just 1 hour, one little show.
I mean, why don't we do this just real quick? Let's just revisit it one last time. Yeah. And I just want to see, like, even if we decide that Bishop H5 is much better, I still want to know, what white should play. Because I don't know, man. This is kind of freaking me out.
I mean, we need to bring our king near this D pawn, but no matter what we do, F6 is always an issue because rook E2 is such an issue, right? So I feel like the white king needs to be at D2 and the rook needs to always be ready to support the E5 square to just, challenge for the E file whenever black plays F6 and trades a pawn. So I'd do like king D2, and then against F6, maybe rook E4, and just sit there and try to hold it. But it does also give black the idea of maybe playing F5 and G5, getting a pawn majority over there. There's so many ideas. I think it's really tough.
Okay, let me try to defend his honor one more time. So king E3, you want to play B5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say I go basic Rook D7.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm going to try and fix one thing here. Okay. All right, sorry. What did you do after B5?
Rook D7.
Rook D7. Man, you are friskiness personified.
Well, I'm just going to go win a pawn, or I'm going to try to win a pawn, and then we'll see.
F6.
Now, by the way, A6 is definitely also an option. So F6, rook takes.
Pawn takes.
Rook B7.
Rook D8.
And now either bishop E1 or king D2. I don't know.
I think king D2 is better. Because after bishop E1, black might have a brilliant move.
D2, yeah. Okay, so let's go king E1.
I'm just showing chat because we're all instructional and all. Okay. King D2.
And now at the worst, you could play rook D5, David. That's just a simple move you can do. And there, we're not doing anything. Okay, so that didn't work.
I mean, you're still scrambling for your life. You're still scrambling for your life, wondering how it got to this point.
See, actually, let's just put that position on the board with rook D5. Although it looks like the milk has gone bad, and it surely feels that way, we do have at least control over the 7th and of the dark squares.
Yeah.
So
you can blockade with the bishop on E3.
I can dream. I can dream about you. If I can hold you tonight. For example, maybe B3, David. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Because your king is shut out, maybe I can hold this.
Okay, you go B3. I play E4. You're going to have to bring your bishop to F2.
Maybe I should have done that first, but all right.
Yeah. So bishop F2. And then I'm going to play bishop F7.
Also, rook G5 looks like a hell of a drug, dude. I mean,
just a simple guy defending his pawn chain.
Jesus. No, this looks abysmal. Okay, I don't like that variation. Let's try again. Let's go to the top. So, bishop H5.
David has no life, says Jacob. What? If I had no life, I would stream 24 hours a day. Or whatever. 20 or 18 plus some sleep.
All right, Dave, let me
way
try.
Too much life.
Let me try again. King E3.
Yeah.
B5. Rook D5.
A6.
A6. Rook D6.
Rook D6. Yep. You already tried this once, remember?
I know.
Okay. I'm hoping that I can remember how I got the advantage last time here.
It wasn't quite this, but it was very close, yeah.
What to do?
I can dream about you.
Mm-hmm.
If I can hold you tonight.
All right, F6. I don't know. Hopefully that's what I did before.
Rook takes.
Pawn takes.
Okay.
Drunky Pluck is suggesting that we send Gukesh the video of the easy French system. Yes, Drunky Pluck. I know somebody on Gukesh's team. I know Gukesh.
He's my boy. Well, let's just say the obvious. This is not so pleasant for a bit.
Yeah. It's a good endgame sensei position, right, Jesse?
I don't know. I don't feel like I have a handle on it at all.
Well, that's perfect.
What would be the
I think
principle?
Gukesh has already seen the easy French video, honestly, Drunky Pluck. I think he's well aware. These guys know so much. They know so much, right? I mean, it turned out that, like, Anish had shown it to Magnus or something like that, right, Jesse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these guys know everything. They know everything. Jesse, do you know the story of, like, when Vinay met Magnus?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Magnus, like, started talking to him about some game that he'd played, like, 10 years ago that had been, like, in a magazine, and, like, Vinay didn't remember it as well as Magnus. Like, Gukesh probably remembers the lines in your video better than you do or something, right? I mean, they know everything, these guys.
Okay, David, let me try one more time. I know it's getting ridiculous. So
Mm-hmm.
King E3,
Yeah.
B5, let me play A4.
King E3, B5. Okay, King E3, B5, A4.
This at least gives you a couple questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Some questions. All
Okay,
right,
this is at
Jesse.
least the
I feel
this
I,
is
I feel the need to be a genius. I
uh-oh.
tried bishop to D1. I'm always trying to be smarter than I need to be, but
Yeah.
or than I am.
All right, so I take your pawn. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you may know by now my bishop's destination is B3.
Yeah, okay. My rook is going to just do the natural move while he's figuring out what you're doing. Rook D7.
Rook D7. Okay, F6.
Well, I'm going to take that bad boy.
What? Your king's on E3.
I know, I'm going to take on A7.
Oh, on A7. Oh, sorry, I forgot. All right, I thought you were taking on F6. I'll take back on E5.
Oh, David, but now I'm playing B6. What's
I
what's
know,
going
I
on
know,
here?
I know.
No, you don't want this.
Okay,
First
that didn't work.
variation, white survived.
That didn't
What's
quite
that?
work out. Yeah. All right, let's try something else. So you go bishop B3, rook D7. All right, I'll play rook B8.
Instead of F6.
Yeah,
But then I have E6.
I know. I know, Jesse.
The coconuts have been touched.
I know. I know.
No, I'm living through this, buddy. I have dreamed about it, and my coconuts are okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's find something better than Bishop D1, bud. So
All
A4,
right. That was too bad.
A4. I think this is at least I think I'm onto at least like a plausible path here for white.
Blue up, I don't know for sure if it's a win for black. You'd have to tell me what the pieces would be instead of opposite colored bishops, right? Like I have to know, is it a king and pawn ending or a rook ending or a queen ending or, where the pieces are. It all depends. Chess is full of depending. All right, so you go A4, Jesse. What do you think I should do as a basic move? A6?
We could try A6. Okay. So then Intenzione was AB, AB, rook D5.
Yep.
And we'll say the obvious what David is thinking, like he needs some way to get his rook in.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to break up the pawns enough. Also, just trading pawns in general is helping me. So, yeah.
Yeah, trading pawns is helpful for white. and for black. That's why it's delicate. For black, it lets the rook get in, which is their main goal, and for white, it allows you to trade things off until you only have to deal with one pawn. You just blockade that, and then your life is simple. Simple. Just want simple life. Okay, rook b8, I guess. Ugh.
And then, do you have big thoughts on e6? What do you want to do?
I don't know what I'm going to do. My bishop's
e6,
hanging,
boss. What have you done?
Hanging.
What have you done?
I don't know.
So rook b8 ain't it?
Well, what am I supposed to do?
But it ain't rook b8 because
I can't deal with
e6
this a4 thing at all.
Okay, so a4. Okay, this is kind of sort of forced, right? So we're saying king e3. And that if I take on c4, I feel like good chances of survival. So b5, a4. And of course, we still like black, but, you know, it's a little concrete right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, a4, I'm having a really hard time not having my entire pawn chain taken apart. First the b pawn, then the c pawn, everything.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Like we live.
Yeah. Strange I can't do like a little bit of something.
Another quick game, dude.
Yeah.
Another quick game. It's stunning.
Yeah, it's good news for my health. I'm about to go to bed.
How's that cold going, buddy? You still suffering?
Oh, I'm suffering. Suffering awful, Jesse.
Yeah.
Did you hear me try to sing?
Oh, yeah.
Brutal. Brutal. I'm drinking tea, man, for the first time in years. That's how desperate it is.
That looks like a4 at least poses some questions.
Yeah. Nice move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, Asher, the reason why I gave up after rook b8, e6, and I didn't even play rook e8 because I knew that Jesse saw it all, but white can go bishop d6, check, and e7. And then their passed pawn is as good as black's, if not better. So, I know I can't do anything in that position. Let's see, where's an example of that? So something like this here, you know, rook e8, check. Here, luckily white can't take on f7 because it's illegal, but they can just play e7. And then black can never win. The pawn is too strong.
Oh, my last video, I was telling people code WC2024, man. I probably had some frustrated people yelling F-bombs at me. Cry, this doesn't work.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That's what happens. You do get into all this Black Friday madness, you know, and then you're part of just a giant horror. But, you know, good luck with the sale. I hope it goes as well as possible.
All right, boss. Go get some sleep.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do this recap video.
Excellent.
No engines were harmed in the use of this video.
Yeah.
You know.
Excellent. All right, take care, everybody. It's been a good one. We'll see you tomorrow for game number 6 with Dingley Wren playing the white pieces.